Welcome to Senpai, your new home for immersive manga, manhwa, anime-inspired novels, and fantasy audiobook stories. Here, every episode brings you into a world of overpowered heroes, revenge arcs, cultivation journeys, virtual reality games, monsters, magic, and emotional character moments. Whether you enjoy dark fantasy, action, reincarnation, system stories, or epic adventure novels, Senpai is here to turn every chapter into a cinematic listening experience. So relax, put on your headphones, and let the story begin. Subscribe to Senpai and join the journey.
Ring. Ding. Dong. Just as Shun made the final save of the game, the sound of the bell chimed as well. And with the chime of the school bell, the game finally came to an end along with the lunch break. Hearing the chime of the bells, the students gathered in the field began to scatter around. They then started to head towards their classes. Some running, some walking, all of them started to head towards their respective classes. Chatter. Chatter. Man, that was an impressive game. Right. Especially that guy with the curly hair. Just how was he able to move like that? That goal he scored after dribbling past 3 defenders. It was a masterpiece. A masterpiece. Did you see his muscles underneath his shirt? His face was even more charming. Man, I'm jealous of him. I bet he can pull over any chick of his desire. Such over-exaggerating comments kept on circulating among the students as they made their way towards their classes after the end of the match. Let's go, Minami. Saying such, the short girl grabbed Minami's hand. While casting one final glance at Hiro, Minami nodded her head and replied, let's go. And just as the players prepared to exit the field, Hiro walked towards Masao and spoke. Good game, Masao. We should play often. Thank you. Masao finally mustered up the courage to accept the compliment. Noticing Masao's smiling face, Masato looked at him coldly and mumbled under his breath, "Every dog has its day, so enjoy your day while it lasts." Saying such, he blended in the crowd and vanished within the crowd. The game ended with Hiro's team's victory. They won the lunchtime game with a score of 2 against Shun's team. Heeding to the advice of the English teacher, Hiro pretended to pay attention to the rest of the classes after the lunchtime, and he somehow refrained himself from looking out of the window. Along with Ms. Yumi, who taught them science, and Mr. Haruki, who taught them history, one other teacher came and taught them maths after the lunch break. The classes then, finally, came to an end with the chime of the school bell. Fearing the incident from the lunch break, Hiro, who had packed his bag even before the end of the final class, rose from his seat and ran towards the door with his bag. "Oi, Hiro, wait for me." Rin, who was seated in front of him, yelled while packing his bag. "I can't. I'll just meet you tomorrow." Saying such, he exited the classroom in a hurry. Why did he leave so soon? Yeah, I wanted to add him on Facebook. The girls from his class cried out loud upon seeing him running out of the classroom. Without stopping, he ran towards the school gate and hopped on the yellow bus parked outside the main gate. It was the same bus from the morning. "Now, where should I sit?" he mumbled while looking at the empty seats in front of him. Since he was the first to arrive at the bus, unlike in the morning, he could choose the seat of his choice. La 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 la. While passing through an alleyway, Masao, who was walking toward his home, all by himself in a pretty good mood, was humming a sweet melody. The sun was still shining, and with nobody around, he was the only person in that alleyway. Maybe I should continue playing football. Mumbling such, he continued to walk towards his home. But all of a sudden he stopped his movement. With his pupils enlarged and heart beating faster, he looked in front of him, terrified. He then slowly retracted his step and began to run backwards. "Catch him. He's running away." Masato, who was waiting for him at that particular alleyway, commanded his sidekicks to run after him after seeing him fleeing away. Noticing Masato and his gangs, Masao ran as fast as he could without looking back. But even so, he couldn't get away from their clutches. At the end of the alleyway, just at the intersection, Masato's other sidekick were stationed at either side of the intersections, waiting for his arrival. Upon hearing Masao's footsteps, those guys hidden behind the walls stepped outside and blocked his path. With Masato behind and 2 other guys in front, Masao was trapped. At his either side were massive walls. Having nowhere to run, Masao stopped and slowly walked towards the wall. "Look, Masato, I haven't done anything wrong to you. So why do you always bully me like this? Please let me leave, Masato." Masao's voice shook as he began to beg Masato to let him leave with eyes full of tears. "Ha ha, look at our piggy crying out loud." Masato laughed while looking at him sobbing and begging. "Why are you so afraid, piggy? We won't harm you. Yeah, after watching you play football, we just wanted to play with you." Masato continued. "Right, guys?" Masato questioned his sidekicks. "Ha ha ha, yeah, we just want to play some football with you." The other guys replied while laughing. While stomping his way towards Masao, Masato continued his yapping. "But our piggy here doesn't consider us as his friends. Haven't we been together since elementary school? So why are you leaving our group for that new guy now?" Masato slowly approached Masao, who was sobbing while leaning himself against the wall in between the 2 groups. And as Masato approached closer to him, he began to lower his body. While covering his ears and closing his eyes, he cowered and shrunk his body into a shape of ball. "Why are you closing your ears, Masao? Did you also cover your ears like this when Keiya was screaming for help?" Masato spoke while approaching him. "No, no." His voice full of terror, Masao yelled. "Did you also close your eyes when Keiya got butchered to his death?" Masato kept on teasing him. "Or was it you who murdered Keiya?" Masato spoke in a serious tone. No, I didn't kill him. No, it wasn't me. No. Masao kept on screaming aloud with tears in his eyes. While cowering in guilt and fear, Masao kept on yelling helplessly. But still no amount of begging availed Masao. With tears rolling down his eyes like monsoon downpour, he begged Masato helplessly to stop traumatizing him. But Masato wasn't willing to listen to his plea. In fact, with a big nasty smile on his face, he was enjoying the sight of Masao cowering in horror. Where's your smile from before, piggy? Now why don't you show me your teeth? Masato spoke contemptuously while laughing. Please stop it. Please, I beg you. His body shivering and his voice shaking. Masao, who was traumatized by the words of Masato, begged him to stop. While Masato made such comments, the other 4 sidekicks of Masato stood there laughing and enjoying the sight of Masao cowering helplessly. Yet, Masao, did you close your ears and eyes back then as well? A lanky guy who was standing beside Masato commented while smiling. As if he was choked to death, Masao's body began to turn pale, and he began to have difficulties in breathing. While sweating and gasping heavily, he screamed in a shrill voice, "No, it's not my fault." His finally cry was so loud that even the people who resided at the end of the alleyway couldn't ignore it anymore. Noticing his screams, they then walked out of their houses to inspect the source of the noise. Masato, the people from the end of alleyway are coming. We need to leave now. The 2 guys who were keeping eyes on people at the end of alleyway mumbled while noticing some people making their way towards the commotion. Let's go, Masato. The guy beside him panicked. Consider yourself lucky, piggy. Masato spoke before running away. After that, all of them started to run away. They then crawled toward the hole in the far left wall and vanished from the scene. That hole, which was formed in the wall, directly connected the alleyway to an abandoned old house. At around 4:30 in the afternoon, Hiro and his teammates were warming up their bodies for the evening training. While still warming up, suddenly Yuya opened his mouth and questioned Hiro. I didn't expect that fat guy to play that well. What was his name again? Hiro, who was juggling the ball beside him, answered without stopping his legs. His name is Masao. You're right. That Masao guy. Did he play football before? Yuya continued. While still juggling the ball, Hiro replied casually, I heard from Rin that he used to play some football in elementary school. Aside from that, I don't know more about him. While speaking of Masao, he then paused all of a sudden and continued with a serious tone, except the fact that he gets bullied at school. Upon hearing the words of Hiro, Yuya, who was stretching his legs, stopped all of a sudden and abruptly turned his head towards him. He then looked at him with his enlarged pupils. He gets bullied. By whom? While holding the ball in his hands, Hiro looked at the ball while frowning his brows and replied, I heard from Rin that he gets picked on by some bullies of our class. I don't know much. He only mentioned that he gets picked on for his weight. But when I look at him, I feel like there's something more. Yuya, who was looking at Hiro with his eyes wide open, was left speechless. Both of them then remained silent for some moment. And just as Yuya was about to open his mouth, Manager Nozomi made his appearance on the field. All of you come here. I'll announce the squad for Sunday's friendly match against Chiba Middle School. Saying such, he commanded everybody to gather around him. Let's talk about it after the training. Yuya mumbled and stormed towards Manager Nozomi. Hiro too nodded his head and ran towards Manager Nozomi to join the crowd. And after everybody gathered in the field, Manager Nozomi began to announce the squad for Sunday's match against Chiba Middle School. Goalkeeper, Shunya Buzo. Center backs, Yugo Tatsuda and Haruto Suzuki. Haruto Suzuki was the opposing defender he faced previously during the match against the starting players. Long rectangular face, black pupils, muscular body, silky straight black hair, which gave others the impression of him shampooing his hair almost every day. Haruto Suzuki was the official number 3 of U15 team. Unafraid of performing rough tackles, he was a nightmare for the strikers. That guy, he nearly broke my legs in the previous match. Did he take lessons from Pepe and Ramos? Hiro mumbled while looking at Haruto. Yuya, who was standing beside him, heard his whisper. And after hearing his words, he whispered back, Consider yourself lucky and be careful of him. He sprained my ankles once in training already. While both of them were gossiping among themselves, Manager Nozomi continued with his announcement. Left back, Soma Oda, square-shaped face with brown pupils and somewhat brown hair. Soma Oda stepped in front upon hearing his name. Dude, seriously, I've been thinking about it since our first game, but how old is he? Hiro murmured while looking at Soma Oda's appearance. Since he looked quite old compared to other players, Hiro couldn't help but ask about his age. He's 15, Yuya replied casually. 15. Hiro abruptly turned his head towards Yuya. He couldn't believe that the guy in front of him was only 15 years old. Since he looked much older compared to his age, Hiro couldn't stop himself from staring at him, perplexingly. Right back, Shunta Tanaka. Upon hearing his name, Shunta's face brightened and his eyes widened. He was both excited and shocked to hear his name called out for the starting 11. Sounding all surprised, Shun spoke meekly while pointing his finger towards himself. I got selected. Can you believe it? Yuya and Hiro, who were standing beside him, gave him a smile and congratulated him. Congratulations, Shunta. Your efforts were recognized. With his head in the clouds, he totally forgot that he had to step in front. Shunta, come forward. Noticing him standing still while looking at Hiro and Yuya, Manager Nozomi yelled, sounding somewhat agitated. Hiro, who was standing beside him, gave him a slight push as well. Having been pushed from the behind, he tumbled forward. He then, while balancing himself, apologized to manager Nozomi for his absent-mindedness. "Sorry, sir. I was just excited to hear my name. It won't happen again, sir. It's good that you realize your mistake. But still, don't disrupt the announcement." Saying such, manager Nozomi continued with his announcement. Midfielders, Hidetaka Mai, Hirado Hayakakai, and Takahashi Hiro. Upon having their names called, the three of them took a step forward and joined the clique of players who were selected for the starting 11. Since most of the times the U15 team played with only one attacking midfielder, other players couldn't help but wonder why manager Nozomi selected two players who played in the same position that time around. Why did he pick two attacking midfielders? The players thought after hearing the name of Hiro and Hirado. Even though they weren't against manager Nozomi's decision, they still couldn't comprehend the reason behind selecting two players who played in the same position. At most, they had expected manager Nozomi to pick Hiro over Hirado. Thus, manager Nozomi's announcement left all of them completely baffled. Forwards, Seiya Baba, Sho Inagaki, and Yuya Asano. Sho Inagaki was the same center forward whom he played against in the match between the starters and reserves. Body which was neither shredded nor fat, his muscles weren't much flashy. Black pupils, small nose, and short dark black hair, which was firmly cut in a buzz cut. His facial features were well defined. That's all for the starting 11. Also, Takakazu Yokotara, Kota Yui, Ryuma Touchi, Daichi Sugimoto, and Kosuke Uchida will be the substitutes for the match against Chiba. As manager Nozomi finished making the announcement, he retracted his step. Coach Fuji then took up the stage and added few more words. Although these players are selected for the Sunday's friendly match, it doesn't mean that the spot is guaranteed. Since we still have 3 more days left for the match, the list could change anytime. So don't slack, and all of you give your best. After that announcement, the evening training started in full swing. And as the players started to scatter around, Takakazu walked towards manager Nozomi without being noticed. "Sir, thank you for accepting my request." Sounding grateful, Takakazu thanked manager Nozomi while bowing his head slightly. "No need to thank me. Just focus on your recovery." Saying such, manager Nozomi walked away, leaving him alone. Takakazu, who played as a starting center back for the opposing team, previously had slightly hurt his ankle during the match. Hence, he had asked manager Nozomi to not play him in Sunday's match. However, manager Nozomi couldn't leave him completely out of the squad, and thus, instead he placed him in the reserves. The coaches then began to assemble the players for the first training drill. For the first training drill, they were going to perform pass, turn, receive, shoot. For that drill, 4 players were chosen. 3 players positioned in a triangular shape with the 4th player at the middle of the triangle who'd act as the pass maker. They would then coordinate with each other and perform multiple fast-paced passes, and finally the player in the middle would shoot the ball towards the post. That drill could help the player to develop their vision, improve their passing and awareness, and most importantly, it would help them to coordinate better. Hiro, Sho, and Yuya stepped forward. Calling out their names, Coach Fuji asked them to step forward. And as they stepped forward, he began to position Hirato, Sho, and Yuya at certain distance away from each other in a shape of triangle. He then positioned Hiro at the center of the triangle and gave Hirato and Yuya 1 ball each. That meant that they were going to perform the drill with 2 balls. With Shun in the goalpost, after placing them all in their respective position, Coach Fuji blew his whistle. Beep! Hirato then passed the ball to Hiro, who was at the center of the triangle. At the same time, Yuya too passed the ball on his feet to Sho. After receiving the ball from Hirato, Hiro released the ball to Yuya and quickly turned around to face Sho. Sho then released the ball to Hiro. At the same time, Yuya released the ball to Hirato. After receiving the ball from Sho, Hiro then passed the ball back to Sho without trapping and quickly turned around towards Hirato to receive another pass. The ball which Sho received from Hiro, he then passed the ball to Yuya. At the same time, Hirato released the ball to Hiro as well. Hiro then shot the ball he received from Hirato towards the post and quickly turned towards Yuya to receive the final pass of the drill. And then he once again shot the ball he received from Yuya towards the post. They continued to repeat the same pattern while switching the player in the middle for several rounds. Although the training looked kind of complicated, it wasn't. In fact, the pattern was quite simple. However, the only thing that was difficult was the movement one would require to pull up those moves. One needed to be extremely agile and sharp to follow the pathway of both the balls. Hiro executed the drill flawlessly without any fail for 2 rounds. However, the others couldn't execute the drill without any mistakes in both the rounds. Not because they couldn't memorize the pattern and follow the ball. They couldn't perform the drill because of the speed of the passes. The passes were simply too fast. After that drill, the coaches then made them perform few other training drills. And finally, they ended the training with a rondo, and by the time they completed their evening training, the sun had already settled down, with stars and the luminescent crescent moon becoming visible in the sky mixed with blue and black hues. The ambience around the ground had gotten chilly. The fast-paced training had completely exhausted the players. However, it wasn't anything out of ordinary. Players lying on the field, panting heavily, was an everyday sight at the field. While everybody were lying on the field, there was still one player who was juggling the ball. And that player was Hiro. Although he too was exhausted by the training, he hadn't had enough yet. On the contrary, he was enjoying the tiring drills. November 4th, 2021. Seated inside a bus, Hiro and his teammates were on their way to Chiba Middle School, which was located about 25 kilometers south to their hostel. With manager Nozomi and coach Fuji seated in the front seat beside the driver, the rest of the players were seated in the passenger seats. Most of the players in the bus were pretty relaxed. However, there were also few players, mostly the ones who got promoted from the reserve team, whose face looked pale and pretty tensed, with their brows frowning. Some of them were biting their nails, while some of them were joining their hands, praying to God. Among them one was Shunta, who was seated right next to Yuya at the third row. Coming from a Buddhist family, he was a follower of Buddha. Clenching his bag tightly with both his hands and closing his eyes, he was intensely praying to the Buddha to bless him and help him in the match. And one could tell just by looking at him that he was extremely anxious about the match which was going to take place in a moment. Yuya, who was seated right next to him, wasn't paying any attention to Shunta, and he looked completely fine. There wasn't even a speck of worry in his face. And Hiro, who was seated right behind them alongside Shun, looked pretty excited about the match. With his lips curling, Hiro wasn't able to stop himself from smiling while thinking about the match. Someone seems pretty excited about the match. Yuya, who was seated in front of him, chuckled while turning his head behind. While maintaining the smile on his face, Hiro replied, Yeah, I'm just excited to test my skills against another team after so long. And I'm also excited to play some competitive matches. Since it had been a long time since he last used his skills, he was pretty excited to use those skills once again. Also, he still had an unused golden ticket, which he had acquired after completing the quest, Impress the Kinzaki brothers from 2 years ago. Since there wasn't any need for him to use that ticket right away, he had been saving that ticket for his time at the youth club. Hearing his cheerful voice, Shun, who was seated right next to him, joined in on the conversation. He then spoke, sounding somewhat sarcastic. I guess those training matches and lunch break matches weren't competitive enough for our star player. It's not like that. Hiro mumbled and tried to deny Shun's claims. I know. Hiro can only be satiated by competitive matches, and those matches were not competitive enough for him. Shun continued to tease him. Yeah. While nodding his head, Yuya burst out into laughter as well. While the three of them were cheerfully gossiping with each other, suddenly all of a sudden, Yuya stopped laughing. With a quizzical look on his face, as if he remembered something, Yuya then spoke. Speaking of lunch break matches, what happened to that Masao guy? I didn't see him after that time when he played with us. And as the topic of Masao was brought, the radiance and the smile on the face of Hiro quickly faded away. Upon witnessing Hiro's face, Shun, who was smiling beside him, quickly dropped a smile and looked at him seriously. Hiro then frowned his brows and replied in a serious tone. He didn't come to school after that day. The teacher simply told us that he was sick. However, when the teacher was telling us about the reason Masao couldn't attend the school, I couldn't stop myself from suspecting Masato and his gangs. And just as I looked back, while telling them about Masao, Hiro paused all of a sudden. His face darkened as he lowered his gaze. Then what? Yuya and Shun yelled while rising from their seats. Their loud voice reverberated all over the bus, and it was heard by everyone in the bus. Hearing their voice, the other players in the bus all turned their attention towards them. Perplexingly staring at them, they couldn't help but wonder why they looked so worked up. Shun, Yuya, what are guys doing? Sit down. Manager Nozomi yelled while glaring at them. Sorry, sir. Both of them then apologized and sat down. Then what, Hiro? They then whispered, meekly asking Hiro to finish his sentence. I saw Masato and his sidekicks laughing. Hiro replied meekly. Although they were shocked to hear about the deeds of Masato and his gangs, they didn't react like how they reacted a moment ago. In fact, they didn't say anything at all for some moments. As if they were lost in some kind of deep thinking, they began to ponder something. And suddenly the atmosphere around them got ghastly silent. Finally, after a moment of thinking, Yuya broke the silence by opening his mouth. Something must have happened to Masao, and they must be behind Masao's absence. Yuya mumbled meekly while demonstrating a serious expression on his face. I agree. Shun nodded his head in agreement. But what could have happened? Hiro questioned with a quizzical look on his face. Maybe they hit him. Shun mumbled. They then began to think of different scenarios. However, they couldn't come to a conclusion, since none of them actually knew much about Masao. Finally, after a while, the bus stopped in front of the Chiba Middle School. And as the bus stopped, the three of them decided to stop talking about Masao for the time being. Okay, everyone, let's go. Saying such, Manager Nozomi and Coach Fuji hopped out of the bus with their bags. All of the players followed suit and started to exit the bus one after the other. And as all of them exited the bus, Manager Nozomi began to call the names of the players. Just as Manager Nozomi finished calling the name of the players, an old man with silvery gray hair with a dad bod dressed in a comfortable tracksuit walked out of the entrance of the school ahead and approached Manager Nozomi. You finally made it, Nozomi. The man spoke in a friendly manner while extending his hand toward Manager Nozomi. As Manager Nozomi faced that fat old man in front, his face lit up and a smile formed on his face. Manager Nozomi then extended his hand to shake the hand of the old man in front and spoke in a cheerful voice. Glad to see you, Tanaka. The fat old man with silvery white hair in front was the head coach of the Chiba Middle School. Glad to see you, too, Nozomi. The coach of Chiba Middle School greeted him back with a smile on his face. They then began to cheerfully exchange greetings with each other. If one were to look at those two, gossiping with such big smiles on their faces, they would probably think that those two were quite close to each other in a good way. However, the reality was actually very different. Both those old men in front were forcing a smile on their faces in reality. I heard that the club didn't held any trial this year. So I guess you're back with the same squad from previous year. I feel so sorry for you, Nozomi. Tanaka mumbled, while revealing a pretentious, sad expression on his face. But don't worry, Nozomi, we won't be hard on you. Tanaka continued with a wry smile on his face. And as he forced a smile on his face, the wrinkles on his face became even more vivid. Hearing such words coming out from the mouth of Coach Tanaka, Nozomi's mouth twitched a little and his face tightened. And as his face tightened, his nerves across his forehead got exposed all of a sudden. Still he maintained the smile on his face and kept his cool. However, the smile on his face still couldn't completely hide his real emotions. It was clear that he was pissed by Coach Tanaka's remarks. We still have promoted some of our academy players. So our squad is not entirely made up of the same players from before. Nozomi replied while maintaining his smile and keeping his cool. He still wasn't willing to disclose the addition of Hiro to him, and thus he didn't mention anything about Hiro at all. Good for you, Nozomi. I just hope that your team won't concede 3 this time like before. Ha ha. Mumbling such, Tanaka laughed and released Nozomi's hand. He then began to walk towards the entrance of the school without hearing his reply. Unable to reply anything, Nozomi gnashed his teeth while looking at the back of Coach Tanaka. Follow me. I'll guide you to the pitch. Tanaka spoke while walking towards the school. Upon witnessing the actions of those 2 coaches in front, Hiro couldn't help but wonder if something was going on between them. Do they have some kind of beef with each other? Hiro asked while looking at the sight of manager Nozomi, who was fuming at that moment. Yeah, they're kind of like rivals since their younger days. Also, we lost 3-1 previously when we faced them in Takamoto Cup. So I can guess Coach Tanaka must have provoked him by mentioning about that loss. Shun replied with a straight face. Everyone, let's go. Manager Nozomi yelled and began to tail Coach Tanaka. Following the command of Manager Nozomi, all of them followed his lead and entered the school. The players of Chiba Middle School were already on the field, warming up for the game against Kawasaki Frontale Club's U-15 youth team. And even though the players of Chiba Middle School were warming up in the field in front, the first thing that he noticed as he reached the pitch was the size of the pitch. The pitch's size is quite similar to ours. Hiro mumbled without thinking, while staring at the pitch of Chiba Middle School. PFT. Ha ha ha, that's our Hiro. He's more concerned about the pitch than the opposing players. Yuya laughed after hearing his remarks. Alright, I nearly forgot about them. Even though the coach had mentioned about them before, I couldn't remember all of them. Hiro mumbled while scratching his scalp. Noticing his quizzical face, Shun offered to help him. It's alright. I'll tell you about them. Shun then began to reintroduce him about the players of Chiba Middle School. And while Shun was telling him about the opposing players, Manager Nozomi called them. Shun, Hiro, what are you doing over there? Go and change your clothes. Yes, sir. Replying such, both of them hurriedly ran towards the changing room. And as all of them came back after changing into their jerseys, Manager Nozomi commanded them to warm up for about 10 minutes. Go and warm up for a while. The game will start after 10 minutes. Hearing his commands, all of them then started to loosen up their stiff bodies. Seems like the opposing team has brought some new players. One of the players of Chiba Middle School commented while looking at the sight of Hiro and few other previously reserved players. Look, Chris, there's a guy who looks as good as you. A guy with long hair and small face spoke while pointing at Hiro. Silky smooth blonde hair and turquoise blue pupils with sharp nose and a chiseled jaw. Chris Phillips' facial features were well defined. With a handsome manly appearance, he was a tall blonde guy of height 5 feet 9 inches. Compared to the other players in the field, he was a titan. Despite being a British, he had been temporarily studying and living in Japan since 2016 because of his father's job. Hearing such words, Chris turned his attention towards Hiro. He then began to scan Hiro's appearance. And as he completed his observations, he spoke. He's a decently good-looking guy, but he still won't hold a candle against me. You need to get your eyes checked, Kuroda. Sigh. Well, I wonder if there's even anyone whom you consider better looking than you. Heaving a sigh, Kuroda sulked and replied meekly. What are you guys talking about there? The coach is calling us to gather. Another guy with tan skin and brown eyes interrupted them while they were conversing with each other. And as all of them gathered, Coach Tanaka began to instruct every player their roles. Kuroda, every time you get the ball at the flank of the final third, supply a high ball inside the penalty box. Do you understand? Hearing Coach Tanaka's instructions, Kuroda nodded his head. And Chris, you, just do your job as usual. Make use of your height and head the ball inside the net. You can do that, right? Yes, sir. Chris nodded his head. While both the managers were busy discussing their strategy with their players, an anonymous guy probably in his early 20s showed up dressed in a comfortable green tracksuit. He then walked towards Coach Tanaka while wearing a smile on his face and began to converse with him while exchanging a friendly handshake. After that, he came towards their side and approached Manager Nozomi. Ryu, you're here. Manager Nozomi spoke cheerfully while extending his hand towards him. The guy in the green tracksuit then grabbed his hand and spoke in an apologetic tone. Sorry I was late. Just as I was about to leave, something came up. With a smile on his face, Nozomi shrugged his shoulder and replied, it's all right. Guys, this guy here will be refereeing your match today. Although he's a graduate of Chiba Middle School, he himself used to be a very skilled player. But right now he's studying in Sakura University, studying sports science. So all of you thank Brother Ryu for the trouble he took for you today. Manager Nozomi introduced Ryu to his players and asked them to greet him. Thank you, Brother Ryu, for your hard work. We'll be under your care. Saying such, all of them bowed their head and greeted the guy who was going to referee the match. Due to the personal connection he had with the coaches of both the team, Ryu was hired by both the coaches to act as a referee for their friendly game that day. Thank you, everyone. I'll be under your care as well. Saying such, Ryu greeted them back with a smile on his face. And after greeting both the teams, he headed towards the center of the field. He then took out a whistle from the left pocket of his tracksuit and blew it loudly. Beep! Hearing the shrill sound of the whistle, everybody turned their attention towards the guy in the middle of the pitch. Okay, guys, let's go and show them what we got. Before sending them off, Manager Nozomi encouraged them to give their best. Yeah, let's go, guys. Shun, who was the captain of the team, yelled enthusiastically as he took the lead. Yeah! All of them yelled and walked towards the center of the field, queued up behind Shun. And as both the team lined up at the field, Ryu called out the captain of both the teams to perform a coin toss. From their side, Shun stepped forward, and from the opponent's side, their keeper, who was half a head taller than Shun, stepped forward. Head or tails? Ryu asked while taking out a coin from his pocket. You can pick first, Satoru. Shun spoke while looking at the opposing goalkeeper. Thank you. The opposing goalkeeper nodded his head. Tails then. Then I'll be taking the head. Shun replied meekly. Well, you don't have any choice. Ha ha ha. Ryu laughed and teased Shun as he flipped the coin high above his head. The coin continued to levitate for a while, and as the coin dropped on the ground, Ryu lowered his head to check the outcome of the coin toss. Tails! Ryu spoke while picking the coin. Chiba Middle School won the coin toss, and thus they decided to select the goalpost. After selecting the goalpost, both the teams lined up in a queue to exchange a friendly handshake before assuming their respective positions. One after other, Hiro shook hands with the opposing players. Since it was only a protocol, he wasn't in the mood to chat with the opposing players. Thus, he had been performing quick handshakes without paying much attention to their appearances. However, as he was moving forward while performing quick handshakes, suddenly he got pulled slightly by one of the opposing player while trying to move forward. "Ooh," he blurted out as he turned towards the player who pulled him. Blonde hair, turquoise ocean pupils, Chris Phillips, he was the titan of Chiba Middle School. Sorry for exerting some force. I didn't know that you were so fragile. Chris spoke while smiling. From the tone of his speech and the expression he was flaunting on his face, it was clear that Chris was taunting him. However, Hiro showed no change in his facial expressions and kept his cool. Upon seeing no changes in his facial expression, Chris dropped his smile and clicked his tongue. Tsich, you're no fun. Saying such, he released his hand. But just as Hiro was about to move forward, he spoke again. What position do you play? Even though he wasn't being arrogant, Hiro wasn't interested in telling him either, and as such, while maintaining a stoic face, he replied, You'll know once the game starts. Saying such, he kept on walking forward without paying any attention to him. He wasn't even slightly bothered by Chris's actions. However, the same couldn't be said to Chris. With his pupils enlarged and face tightened, he was cussing Hiro. That prick. Who does he think he is to act such haughtily? I just hope that you're the defender. Just you wait and see how I'll humble you. Why are you getting annoyed now? Wasn't it you who tried to provoke him? Kuroda thought while looking at Chris, who was fuming. And as everybody finished exchanging handshakes, all of the players assumed their position. Chiba Middle School was going to play in a 4-2-3-1 formation with two defensive midfielder and Chris as their sole poacher. Kawasaki Frontales U-15 team was going to play in a 4-1-2-3 formation with Hidetaka playing as a center midfielder. They had no defensive midfielder. However, manager Nozomi had instructed Hidetaka to cover up the role of defensive midfielder as well, and the center backs to move forward to cover up the spaces left at the defensive midfield. With the sun shining brightly above the players' heads, Sho was preparing to pass the ball while waiting for referee's whistle. Ryu, who was standing right at the half line, was looking at his watch to commence the match. And as the minute hand reached 12, at exactly 1 p.m., Ryu blew his whistle to commence the match. Beep! Hearing the whistle of the referee, Sho, who was standing close to the ball, passed the ball back towards Hiro to start the match. You're lucky that you're not a defender. Mumbling such under his breath, Chris began to press towards Hiro to snatch the ball away from him. Despite noticing Chris charging towards him, Hiro wasn't even a bit intimidated by his size. On the contrary, he calmly dribbled the ball towards him as if he was blatantly challenging him to a duel. Since Chris had already considered Hiro an arrogant player because of Hiro's earlier behavior towards him, Hiro's actions agitated him even further. And thus he took Hiro's actions as a provocation. Provoked by Hiro's actions, he sprinted even faster with all his strength. Good. Manager Nozomi mumbled under his breath while looking at the agitated face of Chris. Hiro still continued to dribble the ball calmly towards him. And as he got closer to him, he simply passed the ball to Hirado, who was positioned right beside him. Noticing the pass, Chris quickly changed his target to Hirado. He then, without pausing, charged towards Hirado. Hirado, too, didn't keep the ball long with him and passed the ball to Hidetaka, who was right behind him. Still, Chris's relentless pursuit didn't come to an end, and he continued his pressing like a madman, with swift and precise passes. For a while, Hiro's teammates kept on passing the ball between themselves. And Chris and his teammates continued to chase after the ball. As if they were playing the game of cat and mouse, the passing and the chasing continued. This team looks completely different than before. And what's with that new number 10? He's literally everywhere. Coach Tanaka commented with an anxious look on his face while keeping his eyes fixated at Hiro. Just like an orchestrator guiding the musicians with his baton, Hiro was connecting and guiding his teammates to create a beautiful symphony with the ball. After a while of chasing, Chris, who had been chasing after the ball, relentlessly began to show signs of exhaustion. And thus, just within 25 minutes of the game, by pressing relentlessly, he completely exhausted himself. The Mad Dog has been subjugated. Now it's time for us to score some goals. Manager Nozomi, who was standing at the sidelines, smirked and mumbled to himself with a satiated look on his face, while looking at the sight of Chris completely worn down. Since Chris was the star player of Chiba Middle School who had scored 3 goals against them previously and was extremely lethal in offense with his reach and pace, Manager Nozomi, while taking Chris's personality into consideration, had advised his players to keep on passing the ball between themselves until they tire out Chris. Following the coach's strategy, Hiro and his teammates executed the strategy perfectly without any fail. Thus, for that entire 25 minutes, all they did was pass the ball between themselves. Occasionally, the opposing team did manage to steal the ball. However, they couldn't retain the position of the ball for long. At the 26th minute of the game, noticing Yuya making his run from the left flank, Hiro lofted the ball towards Yuya from the middle third of the pitch. The opposing players who were focused on the ball began to chase after the ball. And as soon as Hiro released the ball towards Yuya, Hiro began to make his run towards the opposing goalpost. Making use of his explosive pace, he sprinted as fast as he could. Noticing Hiro's run, Coach Tanaka from the sidelines yelled at the top of his lungs, "Watch out for the number 10. However, because of the intensity of the play, no player from his team heard his screams. And thus they continued to press after the ball and safeguard their defensive third, which was the most logical thing for them to do at that moment. The opposing right back, who was marking Yuya, was trying to snatch the ball away from Yuya by pressing him continuously. Even though Yuya was somehow holding the ball despite those continuous pressing from the opposing right back, he was starting to feel uncomfortable. Since the opposing center back were right behind the right back, Yuya was having trouble to cut inside, and thus he was forced to move along the flank. While almost every opposing player and offensive players of Kawasaki Frontale U-15 team were gathered inside the penalty box, anticipating a cross from Yuya, Hiro was still outside the box, totally unmarked. Noticing Hiro making his run towards the penalty box, totally unmarked, Yuya lofted the ball towards Hiro. However, because of the pressing from the opposing defender, Yuya couldn't hit the ball with perfect accuracy. He hit the ball a little too hard. While trying to reach the ball, Hiro jumped as high as he could. However, the ball still flew above his head and avoided him. And just when the opposing team was heaving a sigh of relief, another player who had noticed Hiro's run and was also making his own run, although not as fast Hiro, made his appearance behind him and trapped the ball in his chest. Lanky body, dark hair, he was the guy with number 6 on his back. And that guy was none other than Hidetaka. Noticing Hidetaka, the 2 opposing defensive midfielder came rushing towards him to stop him from making a shot. And as Hidetaka was stretching his legs to shoot the ball, the opposing defensive midfielder threw their body towards him. However, Hidetaka tapped the ball lightly and faked a shot. The opposing defensive midfielders couldn't stop their tackles and flew past him. Hidetaka then passed the ball towards Hiro, who was making his run inside the box. And as the ball came rolling towards him, Hiro shot the ball without any mistake. The ball flew straight towards the goalpost. The opposing goalkeeper, whose vision was obstructed by the players in front, couldn't react to the ball, and thus ended up conceding the goal from the first shot of the game. Golo. The players and managers of Kawasaki Frontale U-15 team yelled at the same time. Manager Nozomi's happiness knew no bound as he jumped and threw an air punch. That goal was simply a piece of art. Hiro, after scoring the goal, ran towards Yuya, and so did other players. All of them started to run towards Hiro to celebrate the goal. Yuya, who had nearly messed up a perfect build-up, was the one with the widest smile. He was simply overjoyed by Hiro's goal. After conceding a goal at 27th minute of the game continued with the kickoff of Chiba Middle School. The titan of Chiba Middle School, who was covered in sweat, was panting heavily while standing in front of the ball for the kickoff. His brows knotted and his body slightly limped. He was fuming while standing in front of the ball, waiting for the referee's whistle. Beep. And as Chris heard referee's whistle, he then passed the ball back to his teammate to start the match. And the match continued normally after that 27th minute goal from Hiro. Although Chris looked extremely tired, he hadn't admitted defeat yet. And his pride of being Chiba Middle School star player didn't allow him to slow down even after emptying his gas tank. Thus, he continued to run like he had another extra pair of lung within him. Yuya and Seiya all pressed forward for the ball. Hiro and Hirado covered as much of the midfield as they could, while the defensive midfielder and defenders of the Chiba Middle School tried to attract the opposing players by passing the ball in their defensive half. Their forwards moved upfield without looking back, leaving their midfield area completely vacant. From their movements, it was clear that they had given up on controlling the ball at the midfield, and they were opting for playing long balls instead. Since they had a titan of center forward, they could swiftly switch their gameplay from passing to long balls without any delay. At 30th minute of the match, one of their defensive midfielder who had the hold of the ball kicked the ball towards Kuroda, who was making his run from the right flank towards the opponent's defensive third. Kuroda sprinted as fast as he could to take the hold of the ball before it went out of bounds. However, despite his speed, he couldn't reach the ball before Shunta, who also happened to be positioned at the right flank since he was a right back. Upon reaching the ball before Kuroda, noticing the presence of Kuroda behind him, Shunta cleared the ball away and the ball went out of bounds. And after the ball went out of bounds, a throw-in was awarded to Chiba Middle School. For the throw-in, while their offensive players gathered inside the penalty box, one of their defensive midfielder, named Yamato, ran towards the touchline to take the throw-in. Gauging by the positioning of their offensive players, it was clear that they were going to take a long throw. Watch out for their players. Shun shouted and guided his teammates to cover up the vacant spaces. Haruto, watch out for Chris. Don't let him jump. Retracting few steps back while holding the ball above his head with both his hands, Yamato was preparing himself to perform a long throw. Beep. And as the referee blew his whistle, Yamato tightened his muscles while sprinting towards the touchline. Yamato then launched the ball inside the penalty box with as much force as he can. The ball flew high above, towards the penalty box, and one could tell just by looking at the ball that the ball was meant for Chris. Except Chris, Shun was the only other player who could reach that high ball, since he was a goalkeeper and he could use his hands. Sensing a threat, Shun ran forward to punch the ball. At the same time, Haruto, as instructed by Shun, delayed Chris's jump by pressing his body against him. WTF, Chris cussed inside his mind while struggling to jump. Shun then punched the ball away. The ball flew outside the penalty box towards Hiro. Without any delay, Hiro sent the ball towards Seiya and started to run. Fall back! Yelling such, Yamato began to chase Seiya, who was charging the ball forward. After punching that ball away from his goalpost, his team had a chance to score another goal from that counterattack. Despite his arrogant nature, Seiya was a really agile player. He was only second to Hiro and Shunta in the team. Making use of his pace, Seiya, after receiving the ball at the midfield, began to dribble the ball towards the opposing goalpost. To stop him from dribbling the ball forward, Niji, the other defensive midfielder of Chiba Middle School who hadn't moved up the field, charged towards him. Noticing the opposing defensive midfielder, Seiya began to look for his teammates. Sho was being marked by opposing defenders, and so was Yuya. After noticing both the forwards marked, he took a peek behind him. Hiro was right behind him to support him. Why does it have to be him? Seiya thought to himself after noticing Hiro behind him. Noticing Seiya's gaze, Hiro shouted, "Pass!" But just as Seiya locked eyes with Hiro, he quickly turned his head forward and ignored his calls. Seiya then tried to dribble the ball all by himself, instead of passing the ball to Hiro, who was right behind him, totally unmarked. With some body feints, Seiya tried to shook off his mark. However, while trying to snatch the ball, Niji accidentally hit Seiya's leg. Upon getting hit at his leg, due to his momentum, Seiya went flying in front. And as he crashed against the ground, he grabbed his legs and began to pant in pain. Arg! Arg! Beep! Foul! The referee spoke while pointing at the place where Seiya was lying down holding his leg while making painful expression. How was that foul? Yeah, he is acting, ref. Niji only touched him. Players of Chiba Middle School surrounded Ryu and began to complain and question his judgment. It's a foul, and if anybody isn't satisfied with my decision, then they're free to leave. Saying such, Ryu put his hand inside his pocket, probably to take out his cards. Noticing Ryu putting his hands inside his pocket, their captain Satoru and Kuroda began to console their teammates. They then apologized to the referee for their misconduct. Sorry, ref. Our players were being immature. Hearing the apology from their captain, Ryu let go of the card. 99 end of friendly match. For Niji's foul against Seiya, the referee awarded their team a free kick. The spot at where they were awarded the free kick was quite far from the goalpost. In fact, the free kick spot was near the center circle. It's okay, guys. It's not a big deal. So let's not make a fuss about the foul. Plus, look at the spot where they're awarded the free kick. It's like more than 40 yards away from our goalpost. And to score a goal from that spot, they'd probably need Roberto Carlos. And do any of you see Roberto Carlos in that team? Well, I don't see any. So fret not, guys. Saying such, Satoru tried to encourage his teammates and raise their morale. Yeah, he's right, guys. Let's not get worked up over a single foul. Kuroda added while clapping his hands. Yeah, Chris, who had been sulking because of the earlier goal and Haruto's challenge, parroted enthusiastically after listening to the motivating words of Satoru. While the players of Chiba Middle School were talking such, looking all motivated, the scene at the other side was quite different. Seiya was arguing with other players, fighting over the free kick. It was me who won the free kick, so it should be me who should take the free kick. Seiya, exasperated while holding the ball. Yuya and the other tried to snatch the ball away from him, but he wasn't willing to listen to them. He was adamant on being the free kick taker. Look, the coach has already decided the set-piece taker before the game, so it's better you give up the ball. Yuya intoned while trying to snatch the ball away from him. Hirado and some other players were playing the role of the spectators. Without taking anyone's side, they were simply observing Seiya and others fighting over the free kick. Hiro, who was the appointed set-piece taker, was keeping his mouth shut and silently observing Seiya getting worked up over a free kick. What are those idiots doing? I had already announced the set-piece taker before match. So why are they fighting over set-piece at this moment? Manager Nozomi exasperated while putting his hands atop his head. He was already upset by Seiya's action earlier, when he decided to ignore Hiro and dribble the ball all by himself. But looking at his actions at that moment, he was literally on the verge of erupting. Noticing them fighting over the set piece, while wasting time, Ryu shouted furiously, Team Kawasaki. What are you doing? Don't hog onto the ball for long. I'll charge you all with time wasting and give you yellow cards. Listening to the furious roar of the referee, Shun, who was the captain of the team, ran towards them to control the situation. Seiya, just give up. Look, the coach is glaring at you. And I'm sure you know the meaning behind that gaze of his. Shun spoke while pointing towards manager Nozomi, reminding him of the consequences he'd have to face later. With his eyes wide open, manager Nozomi was staring at Seiya coldly from outside the pitch. He looked really pissed. Although they couldn't see his face properly from that distance, Seiya could still feel Coach Nozomi's penetrating gazes on him. Tichi-aka, Fine. Take it. Clicking his tongue, Seiya finally let go of the ball, disappointed. Yuya then picked up the ball and handed it to Hiro, who was standing right behind him with a dumbfounded look on his face. And as he was about to leave, Yuya spoke. Show them what you can do, Hiro. Hiro nodded his head and took the ball from him. And as he placed the ball at the spot marked by the referee, Hiro retracted few steps behind. After retracting about 7 steps, he paused and let out a deep breath. He then looked at the ball and post in front. A wall of 5 tall players from Chiba Middle School stood in front of him and the post. Except 2 defenders, all his teammates were gathered at the opponent's penalty box. System activate Roberto Carlos's free kick. He spoke to himself. Roberto Carlos's free kick activated. Beep. And as Ryu blew his whistle, Hiro ran towards the ball. He then hit the ball with inside of his right foot. The wall of players jumped up to block the ball. However, the ball flew just above their head and headed straight towards the goalpost. What the? Chris cussed while turning his head behind towards the goalpost. Coach Tanaka, with his mouth agape and pupils enlarged, looked at the ball totally shocked. Due to the spin on the ball curved along the way. Even Satoru wasn't prepared for that free kick. At most, he had expected Hiro to pass the ball to his teammates at the penalty box. But Hiro's powerful free kick caught him totally off guard. Even so, he tried to stop the ball from finding its way inside the net. Satoru then dived towards the direction of the ball. But still, he couldn't manage to land a touch on the ball. The ball effortlessly found its way inside the net. Neither the opposing teammates nor his own teammates could believe their eyes. Even after the ball touched the net, nobody made any sound for a while. Finally, after a few seconds, his teammates burst in jeers. Galol! The players of Kawasaki Frontale U-15 team yelled ecstatically. Jumping and running, they began to celebrate Hiro's unbelievable goal. Coach Tanaka's face turned pale all of a sudden after witnessing that unbelievable goal of Hiro. What just happened? He mumbled as he turned his head towards Coach Nozomi. And as he turned his gaze towards Coach Nozomi in shock, he found Coach Nozomi looking at him with a sly smile on his face. Witnessing manager Nozomi's sly smile, Tanaka's face tightened. He then gnashed his teeth and squeezed out some word from his mouth. That sly old fox. After scoring a goal at the 31st minute of the match, Hiro's team played even more aggressively at the second half after making few substitutions and scored 4 more goals in the second half. Seiya was substituted because of his earlier misconduct and disobedience. Thus, the game ended with Hiro's team victory with an overwhelming score of 6 o'clock. At that 6 o'clock victory over Chiba Middle School, Hiro scored 4 goals and assisted a goal to Yugo. Hirado recorded 2 assists himself, 1 for Hiro and 1 for Sho. And Hidetaka and Yuya recorded an assist each for themselves as well. And thus the game finally came to an end. While Coach Tanaka was gritting his teeth and grieving his team's loss, manager Nozomi was flying over the cloud after securing such an overwhelming victory over the team, to whom they conceded 3 goals previously. After the end of the match, Coach Tanaka approached manager Nozomi with a rather irritated look on his face to congratulate manager Nozomi for his team's victory over his own. Congratulations, Nozomi. Coach Tanaka congratulated Nozomi while gritting his teeth. Thank you, Tanaka. Like you said, my team didn't concede 3 goals this time around. And I'm sure it's all because of your well wishes. So thank you very much, Tanaka. Manager Nozomi replied with a smile on his face. Listening to Nozomi's words, Coach Tanaka's mouth twitched a little. And even though he was on the verge of exploding, he kept his cool and replied with a pretentious smile on his face. It's all because of your players. So please don't give me the credit for your team's victory. Maintaining his pretentious smile, he then began to rummage his mind to think of some excuses to walk away. All right, I remembered that I needed to discuss something with our principal today, so I'll take my leave first. Nervously saying such, Coach Tanaka turned around and walked away in a hurry, without looking back. But it's Sunday today. Manager Nozomi mumbled dumbfoundedly. But Coach Tanaka didn't reply anything and simply kept on walking away while pretending he didn't hear anything at all. Later in the evening of that same day, at around 4:30 p.m. Hiro and his friends were seen walking towards the stadium of Kawasaki Frontale, dressed in black and blue jersey. In front of them, a lot of people dressed in the jersey of Kawasaki Frontale Club were also gathered around the Kawasaki Todoroki Stadium, smiling and singing while carrying the banners of the club. Another batch of people who were dressed in red and blue jersey were also gathered around the Kawasaki Todoroki Stadium. The people dressed in red and blue jersey were the fans of FC Tokyo. And all those people were rushing towards the Kawasaki Todoroki Stadium to witness the match between Kawasaki Frontale Club and FC Tokyo. They were gathered there to show their support for their respective teams. Because of the friendly match which took place during daytime, The coaches had exempted all the players of U-15 from evening training to give them some time to recuperate from the fatigue they suffered during the match. While some players stayed in the dorm, some went outside. And Hiro and his friends were among those players who decided to go out. Impressed by Hiro's performance during the friendly match, manager Nozomi had gifted him a ticket for the match between Kawasaki Frontale and FC Tokyo, which was going to take place later in the evening at 5 o'clock. However, since he didn't want to alone, he requested manager Nozomi to provide him with 3 more tickets for his friends. Manager Nozomi, who was in a very good mood, agreed to his request and provided him with 3 more tickets. Making use of the ticket provided by manager Nozomi, Hiro decided to go and watch the match between Kawasaki Frontale Club and FC Tokyo, also popularly known as Tamagawa Classico, with his friends. Sounding all excited, Yuya, who was a die-hard fan of Kawasaki Frontale Club, spoke while walking toward the stadium. Mark my words, Leandro Damiao is going to be the man of the match for today's match, and he's going to score another goal today. The player whom Yuya was mentioning about was a player of Brazilian origin, and at that 21-22 season, he was in a phenomenal form. Scoring a record-breaking 15 goals, he was dominating the top scorer list of J1 League. Previously playing for clubs like Santos, International, Real Betis, Flamengo, and many more, he was a talented player of Brazilian origin. Yeah, he's great. But don't forget about G.O.A.T. I'm sure he's going to show us another brilliant performance today. His speed, his passing, and his work rate. It's like moi. While excitedly praising one of the player of Kawasaki Frontale, Shunta made a kissing gesture. They're both great player. But mark my words, Keiya Maitoma's going to be one of the best player in the world within few years. Shun, who had been following Maitoma's progress since some years, joined Yuya and Shunta's conversation by bringing the name of Maitoma. Maitoma, he was indeed one of the impressive player in previous year, and he did earn himself a transfer to a Premier League team. But isn't he loaned to Union SG this season? Yuya intoned while recalling things about Maitoma. At the season 2021, Maitoma was honored as one of the best player in the league, and at 21-22 season, he was bought by Brighton for a measly amount of £3 million. After that, he was loaned for the entirety of 21-22 season to Union SG. After bringing the topic of Maitoma, since their beliefs contradicted with each other, they then began to argue with each other. No one willing to back down, each and every single one of them were adamant about their opinions. And because of that unwillingness to back down, the argument was stretching even further. Hiro, who was also present, there was observing them arguing with each other, without saying anything. Since he knew about the future, he didn't feel while joining in on the argument. Unable to come to a truce, Yuya then decided to ask for Hiro's opinion. Okay, then let's ask Hiro's opinion, Yuya suggested while turning his gaze towards Hiro. Let's do that. The two of them nodded their head and agreed to his suggestion. Hiro, do you think that Maitoma is going to become one of the best player in the world within few years? Yuya asked in a serious tone with his gaze fixated at Hiro. Without any sort of hesitation, Hiro replied, yes. Hearing Hiro's words, Shun's face lit up all of a sudden and a wide smile formed on his face. He then spoke while sounding all excited. See, I told you. Yuya and Shunta, both of their face darkened as they sulked their head after hearing Hiro's opinion. Both of them mumbled while sounding somewhat disappointed. How can you be so sure of it, Hiro? Showing no changes in his facial expression, Hiro then replied with a straight face, because I can see the future. Believing his words. 1838. Haha, why do you all look so serious? It was a joke. A joke. Saying such, Hiro burst into laughter. His words left all of them speechless. Their eyes wide open and their mouth agape. They were believing his words. Haha. Why do you all look so serious? It was a joke. A joke. Saying such, Hiro burst into laughter. That was a joke. Damn. But after watching you play, if you tell me that it's your second time in life, I would have even believed it. Yuya mumbled while heaving a sigh of relief. Right. The other two standing beside expressed their agreement. At an office at the same time, when Hiro and his friends were heading to Kawasaki Todoroki Stadium, manager Nozomi and manager Masato were sitting opposite to each other in an office room, consisting of an immaculate table, few chairs, a whiteboard, a flower pot, and few stationaries inside the drawer of the table. The office room was neat and clean. Brother, he's too talented to play in U-15, Nozomi spoke while looking at his brother. Understanding the meaning behind his brother's sentence, manager Masato spoke, but he's still only 12. We can't promote him. He'll turn 13 next year, brother. We need to promote him to U-18 team. If we want to win the Takamoto Premier League, then we need to promote him, brother. Brother, he's too talented for his age. Nozomi tried to reason with his brother. After hearing Nozomi's response, Masato began to ponder. Brother, we need to use his talent. We can't let him rot at U-15. He's way above their level. If not for the age requirement to play at professional level, I'd have even suggested him to the senior team. Nozomi continued. However, still after hearing so much from his brother, Masato kept on pondering. Since he couldn't make decisions carelessly, he was hesitant to decide right away. Finally, after thinking for a while, Masato opened his mouth. But will he be alright against guys who will be like 4, 5 years older than him? Masato mumbled with a concerned expression on his face. He too wanted to promote Hiro to the U-18 team. However, he was also afraid of injuring Hiro. I know that you're about him, brother. But we still have more than 6 months left for the league to start. So in the meantime, if we work on his physicality, then I'm sure that we can prepare him to play against those tougher and stronger than him. Nozomi intoned. Brother, he's meant for the world. I could see a world-class player in him. So instead of holding him back, we should motivate him and push him so that he can fulfill his potential. Nozomi added. After hearing Nozomi's words, Makoto rose from his seat. He then started to walk away from the table. Witnessing Makoto's unusual behavior, Nozomi exasperated. Brother, where are you going? Didn't you say that we should motivate him and help him improve? I did, but how is you walking away without saying anything's going to help him improve? Asked Nozomi, looking somewhat dumbfounded. I was going to fetch Eric's number. Since he's his agent, we need to discuss with him before we can make any decisions. Replied Makoto while towards the closet. After having his dinner, at around 8 p.m. in the afternoon, inside his dorm room, Hiro was lying on his bed with his face facing the ceiling. At that time, Shun, Yuya, and Shunta, all three of them were gathered in Yuya's room conversing about the earlier match between Kawasaki Frontale and FC Tokyo. While staring at the ceiling above, absent-mindedly, Hiro was pondering about his performance in the earlier match against Chiba Middle School. I should work on my passes more, and I should be more mindful of my surrounding. Even during that first goal, I couldn't see the run of Hidetaka. Had I realized him being behind me, I would have behaved differently, he thought while thinking and analyzing his earlier actions. Although dribbling and pace are my main arsenal, I'm playing as a playmaker. And despite being a playmaker, my assist stats are not so good. So I think I should focus more on my vision, passes, and physicality for the time being. Despite performing really well by contributing 4 goals and an assist in the earlier friendly match, Hiro was still not satisfied with his performance. Reflecting on his actions, he would try to learn from his mistakes. Alright, I still have that used golden ticket. Maybe I should use it now. Mumbling such, he rose up from his bed. System acti dash. Knock, knock. And just as he was about to activate the system, he heard a knock on his door. Since he knew that Shun wouldn't be back before 9 or 10, he was baffled by that sudden knock on the door so late in the night. Hearing the knock, he turned his attention towards the door and answered meekly. Who's this? It's me, Yugo. Lazily answered Yugo from outside the door. Oh, it's Yugo. Releasing a deep breath, he then walked towards the door and opened the door. Outside the door, Yugo was standing dressed in his pajamas. His pajamas consisted of a wiggly long hat and baggy shirt and pant. His fox-like eyes were almost closed, as if he had just woken up from sleep and he was still feeling sleepy. And even after opening his door, Yugo was simply standing there without uttering a single word, as if he couldn't see or hear him. Yes, Yugo, do you have something to say? Hiro mumbled, but Yugo remained completely silent with his chin lowered. Maybe he's here to complain about my plays in the earlier game. Hiro pondered while looking at Yugo, silently standing in front of his door with his chin lowered. He then offered him to come inside his room. Or, do you like to come inside and discuss what you were going to say? Yawn. Hearing Hiro's words, he yawned before opening his mouth to say something. So he was only dozing. Hiro thought after seeing him yawn. And after yawning, Yugo replied, No, it's fine. I was just here to deliver the message from the coach. He wants you to come to his office. Me? Why does he want me to go to his office this late in the night? Hiro questioned, sounding somewhat confused. Yawn. Yugo yawned again before replying. How would I know? He just asked me to deliver this message to you. I've finished my task, so it's up to you whether you want to go or not. Saying such, he walked away. While watching Yugo vanish from his sight, he pondered, strange. Why would the coach want to meet me alone this late in the night? Maybe he also wants to talk about my plays. Guess I'll continue the draw after a short trip to the coach's office. Thinking such, he then left for the coach's office after closing his door. With nobody present in the hallway leading to the coach's office was ghastly silent. Some moths were fluttering around the LED bulbs above the ceiling. After reaching near to the coach's office, he took a peek at Coach Nozomi's office. But there was no light coming from his office. Instead, the light was coming from Manager Makoto's office. Noticing the light coming from beneath the gaps of the door of the Manager Makoto's office, he then walked towards Manager Makoto's office and knocked the door. Knock, knock. Yes, come inside, Hiro. Just as he knocked the door of Manager Makoto's office, he heard Manager Nozomi's voice from inside the door. Why is Manager Nozomi replying from inside Manager Makoto's office? He thought before opening the door. And as he opened the door to Makoto's office, he noticed both Manager Makoto and Manager Nozomi seated at the chair opposite to each other. Noticing both the coaches, he froze at the door. Come inside. We were waiting for you, replied Makoto, the chubby old man. Yes. Excuse me then. Mumbling such, he entered the room while closing the door behind him. Manager Nozomi then stood up from his seat and offered his seat to Hiro. Please sit here. Saying such, he walked towards him. It's all right, sir. I'm comfortable with standing. Saying such, Hiro tried to refuse his hospitality. But Manager Nozomi insisted him to sit down since they were going to discuss something really important with him. Giving in to Manager Nozomi's insistence, he then took the seat and sat down. And just as he sat down, Manager Makoto in front opened his mouth to speak. I'll be direct with you, Hiro. We're thinking of promoting you to the U-18 team. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but please hear us before deciding. Both the managers were fearful of him rejecting their proposal. After all, it hadn't even been a month since he had arrived at the hostel, and he had only played a single match with the U-15 team thus far. His age was also another matter of concern. since there's also a possibility that he'd have to face against several professional players who were already playing professionally for a club playing in J1. They were fearful that he might reject their proposal because of those reasons. But what they didn't know was that he was more than willing and prepared to play for the U18 team. Hearing manager Makoto's words, Hiro turned his head towards Nozomi, who was standing beside him. Nozomi then blinked both his eyes while looking at him and nodded his head. I know it'll be tough for you, but Hiro, I believe that you won't improve much in U15 team. And we've also talked about it with your agent. And he said that he'll go with your decision. So please hear us once before you make your decision. Makoto exclaimed. Upon hearing his words, Hiro nodded his head and straightened his back. Manager Makoto then began to explain about the pros and cons of him playing for the U18 team. Although the league will be a bit hard for you, considering your age. But we still have more than 6 months left for the league to start. And I believe that we can prepare you both physically and mentally for the league within that time period. Makoto spoke with a serious expression on his face. That's right, Hiro. We'll train you separately after the training session and prepare you for your Premier League debut. Nozomi, who was standing right beside him, spoke with confidence and expressed his desire. While both of them were presenting their opinions and ideas, Hiro was ardently listening to their opinions and ideas without uttering a single word. So what do you say, Hiro? Do you want to stay in U15 team for another year, or do you want to play for U18 from next season onwards? Makoto finished his sentence with a question, and as both of them finished presenting their ideas, Hiro lowered his gaze towards the table in front and began to ponder. Or so they thought after looking at him. However, he was simply acting. He was acting to make them believe that he wasn't making his choices rashly. From the moment he heard from manager Makoto's mouth that he was going to be promoted to the U18 team, he had already made his decision. I believe that you both are making such decision for my well-being. So I'll go with your decision, sir. Hiro replied without any changes in his facial expression. Although he was jumping and singing inside his head, celebrating like crazy, he didn't show any reactions up front and maintained a poker face in front of the coaches. Great! Their face lit up as they intoned excitedly with a wide smile on their faces. Then we'll begin your training from tomorrow onwards. Also, you'll be training with the U18 from tomorrow onwards as well. So don't go to U15 pitch accidentally, mumbled manager Makoto with a wide grin on his face. Listening to the words of manager Makoto, Hiro nodded his head. He then lowered his head and thanked both the coaches. Thank you for providing me with such an opportunity, sirs. I won't let you down. After leaving the coach's office, he made his way towards his room, jumping and humming silently in joy along the way. And as he entered his room, he found nobody present in the room, which meant Shun was still at Yuya's room. I never expected that I'd be playing with professional players so soon, Hiro mumbled while sitting atop his bed. Since the clubs could play their academy players from 15 years onward, there were some players in the U18 team of every professional team who can also be regarded as professional players. Takafusa Kubo played a professional league at the age of 15. So let's not get overwhelmed, Hiro, he said to himself while trying to calm him down. All right, let's spin the roulette. System activate. System activated. And as the system activated, the same holographic blue panel of the system appeared in front of his eyes. By that time, he was already used to seeing the blue panel of the system. He then performed few clicks and headed towards the roulette section. With a giant roulette wheel, the page was the same as it was before. One golden ticket available. Do you like to use your ticket? Yes, Hiro spoke to himself. And as he agreed to consume the golden ticket, the roulette wheel began to spin. After spinning for a while, it landed on a card and a golden card popped up in front of him. Impatient as he was, he immediately clicked on the card. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the passing sense of Kevin De Bruyne B. Talent description. Activating the talent can significantly improve host's passing, vision, and IQ permanently. After noticing the talent he drew from the system, his pupils enlarged as he abruptly rose from his bed. Damn freaking awesome. I freaking love you, system. He mumbled in ecstasy and threw his arms towards the sky. Just some moments ago, I was thinking of improving my passing and vision. And now I drew such an OP talent. He continued. After mumbling such an ecstasy for a while, he paused all of a sudden. Squinting his eyes, he then glared at the system. But how can the system be so generous to grant me such an overpowering talent? And what's with that alphabet behind the title of the talent? He was somewhat skeptical about the generosity of the system. That's the grade of the talent. Since the original passing talent of De Bruyne is way more OP. Because of your present stats, the system has deemed that you're still not eligible to own such talents. Thus, the system has purposely lowered the rank of the talent to fit your capability at the moment. Hence, you can only use part of the passing talent De Bruyne possesses at the moment, meaning you'll not be able to miraculously play on the level of De Bruyne. So stop fantasizing and work your ass off. WTF? Did the system just diss me? He mumbled while contorting his face after listening to the description provided by the system. Why, system? Did you just diss me? Feeling mocked by the system, he questioned the system. No, I only described you what you wanted, spoke the system. Yeah, indeed, that's what it did, mumbled Hiro dumbfoundedly, since it was speaking the fact after all. But from when did system start speaking like this? Hiro mumbled, but the system didn't reply anything at all. He kept on questioning the system time and again, but he didn't get the answer he was looking for. Arg, let's just stop. It has always been unpredictable, so there's no point asking it. Mumbling such, he gave up questioning the system. After inhaling and exhaling a few deep breaths, Hiro calmed himself. He then walked towards his door to lock the door. And as he locked the door, he walked towards his bed and sat atop his bed with his legs crossed. Activate the talent, he murmured while briefly closing his eyes. He was afraid of the potential drawbacks from activating the talent. He was afraid that he'd have to suffer from the same pain which he suffered during the consumption of the muscle-enhancing elixir. And he wasn't willing to show that pathetic side of him to his friend. That's why he locked the door to prepare himself for the activation of the talent. Talent activated. As he heard the notification from the system, he squeezed his eyelids even more tightly to brace himself for the sudden impact. Tightening his muscles and clenching his fist, he remained still for some moments. 1 second, 2 seconds, 59 seconds, 60 seconds. A whole minute passed, but nothing happened to him. After staying still for a whole minute, he opened his eyes, loosened his muscles, and unclenched his fist. His palms were sweaty from clenching his fist tightly for that entire minute. Feeling confused, he murmured, "Nothing happened? Did the process fail? Or maybe the system is malfunctioning. The system is working perfectly fine. And no, the process has not failed. The talent has already been activated. Since it's a talent and not an item, you don't have to fear the possible drawbacks. Only when consuming the items, you might experience some drawback," replied the system after hearing his concerns. "Oh, I see. I was worrying for nothing. Ha ha." Acting all surprised, he then revealed an awkward smile on his face. "Then let's see how much my stat has improved." Saying such, he activated the system to check his stats. New stat vision unlocked. Attributes. Physical, 56 100ths, grade, C+. Dribbling, 84 out of 100, grade, A. Pace, 67/100, grade B. Passing, 79/100, grade B+. Shooting, 73/100, grade B+. Defending, 41 out of 100, grade C. Mentality, 64/100, grade B. IQ, 82/100, grade A. Vision, 64 out of 100, grade B. Overall grade, B+. His face lit up as he witnessed his stats. With his eyes opened wide and mouth agape, he exclaimed, "Whoa, my stats have increased by a lot." Knock, knock. At that same time, he heard a knock on his door. "Yulman, what are you doing with the door closed?" Spoke Shun from outside the door. "Meditating," he replied tersely and got out from his bed. He then walked towards the door to unlock the door. And as soon as he unlocked the door, Shun came rushing inside. Hurriedly walking towards Hiro's bed, he began to look underneath his bed. After that, he looked under his bed sheets. As if he was searching for something, he kept on searching here and there. Noticing Shun's weird behavior, Hiro questioned, "What exactly are you looking for?" While still in the process of searching his bed, Shun replied, "Ero manga. I'm sure you've hidden some hentai manga, so bring it out right now. As the saying goes, sharing is caring. So share it. WTF, why would I hide such vile things?" answered Hiro with a flustered face. Finally, after searching almost everywhere, he stopped after not finding anything. "See, I told you, I don't have such things," Hiro mumbled with a satiated expression on his face while looking at Shun. But, Shun shuddered while standing in front of Hiro's bed, staring at the bed in daze. "Now move aside. I need to sleep." Saying such, Hiro began to tidy his bed. After that, he hopped onto his bed and fell asleep. Ring, ring. At around 5 in the morning, Hiro's eyes opened to the sound of the alarm clock. Pretty excited to train with you, 18 players. He hopped out of his bed and hit the snooze button of the alarm clock. Shun, who was a heavy sleeper, was still sleeping on his bed. Getting out from his bed, he grabbed his toothbrush and towel. After that, he left his room and headed towards the bathroom to freshen up. Rinsing his face with cold water, he felt rejuvenated. And as he finished rinsing his face, he wiped off the water with the towel he was carrying. After that, he went back to his room to get his cleats and training bibs before heading to the pitch. While heading towards the pitch, he noticed Yuya on the hallway. Seeing him, Yuya waved his hands and spoke in a cheerful tone. "Fancy seeing you so early in the morning." "Yeah, I slept quite early yesterday," Hiro replied while catching up to Yuya. From the very beginning of his stay at the hostel, he had been waking up a little late because of the late-night conversation he had with Shun. And since he had slept quite early yesterday, he also woke up early in the morning. "Haha, yeah, I guess it's because of Shun. I'm sure that he must have kept you awake till late in the night with his nonsensical chatterings." Yuya joked. "And he must still be sleeping, right?" "Yeah, sometimes I wonder if he was a pig in his previous life," Hiro replied with a straight face. Conversing and joking, they made their way towards the pitch. And as they reached the door of the U-18 pitch, Hiro paused all of a sudden. Noticing him standing in front of the door of U-18 pitch, Yuya spoke. "What happened? Why are you standing over there? We need to head a little further. Did you already forget about that?" "Ha ha ha," Yuya joked. For a few seconds, Hiro didn't reply anything. He was thinking about how to break the news of his promotion to his friend. Upon noticing the expression on the face of Hiro, Yuya felt something was troubling Hiro. Finally, after thinking for a while, he decided to tell Yuya about the truth without mixing any lies or excuses. He then spoke meekly while slightly frowning his brows. "Actually, yesterday at around nighttime, I was told by the coaches that I've been promoted to the U-18 team. So, yeah, I'll be training with the 18 team from today onwards. After revealing the news of his promotion to Yuya, Hiro slightly lifted his gaze towards Yuya to see his expression. Hiro was fearful that Yuya may not be happy about hearing about their parting so soon. But on the contrary, with a wide smile on his face, Yuya threw himself towards Hiro and hugged him instead. Since Hiro wasn't expecting such reaction from Yuya, Hiro was startled, and hence he wobbled a little while trying to catch Yuya. Yuya then, while tightening his grip around Hiro's back, spoke in a cheerful voice. I knew it. I knew that you'd make it. I'm so happy for you, Hiro. Although we could only play briefly with each other, I've learned a lot from you, Hiro, and I'll soon catch up to you as well. While congratulating him, he expressed his inner feelings. And one could tell, just by listening to the tone of Yuya's voice, that he was genuinely happy for Hiro. Listening to such warm words, Hiro's doubts vanished away. The sides of his lips lifted up as he revealed a smile on his face. Receiving such warm word from his friend made Hiro really happy. Thank you, Yuya. Hiro thanked Yuya with a bright smile on his face. And after hugging him for a while, Yuya unwrapped his arm and let him go. Please tell Shun and Shunta about this news on my behalf. Hiro spoke while looking at Yuya. Yuya then nodded his head and spoke with a smile on his face. I will. And best of luck, my friend. Thank you, my friend. Hiro replied. I'll see you after training then. Saying such, Yuya parted with him and headed towards the U-15 pitch. Hiro too headed inside the U-18 pitch. As he entered the U-18 pitch, he began to roll his eyes all over the pitch. The pitch was of the same length as that of U-15 pitch. However, the players were quite different. Tall, muscular, and strong. Not even a single one among them looked overweight. The players in the U-18 pitch were simply built different. Because of the different schedule between the two teams, Hiro hadn't had much chance to meet the players of U-18 team. And also, since the players of U-18 team minded their own business and didn't interact much with the players of U-15 team, the players of U-15 and the player of U-18 team were almost like strangers. Almost all of the players of U-18 had already arrived at the pitch for the morning training. Unlike the players at the U-15 team, who looked like amateurs, he could tell, just by looking at those players in front of his eyes, that they were all professionals. Among them, there were 3 exceptional players who had already made their debut for the pro team. Forward Tatsuki Siko, who was still only 16 years old, had made his debut that year in a match with Seigen Tosu. Defensive midfielder Kenzuya Yamamura, who was 18 years old, had also made his debut briefly the year before against Nagata, and Naoto Miyashiro, the 4th-choice goalkeeper of Kawasaki Frontale, who was only 18 years old, had played quite few games for the team already. Looking at those players, he murmured to himself in awe, I'm a step closer to my dream. Even before the start of the training, Hiro could feel his blood rushing and heart pumping faster. He was very excited about training with those exceptional players. Just when he was staring blankly at the players in front with a gleam in his eyes, manager Makoto appeared behind him. Lost in his thoughts, he couldn't notice the presence of Makoto behind him. After getting close to Hiro, Makoto then whispered in his ear, Your blood is pumping fast, right? Ah! Hiro screamed as he wobbled forward after hearing the sudden voice of Makoto behind him. And as he noticed Makoto, he spoke, Please don't scare me like that, coach. Ha ha! I didn't scare you, Makoto replied while laughing. Behind him was another old man of height 6 feet, probably in his late 40s. Rectangular-shaped face with monolid black eyes and dark lips. He was the positioning coach of the youth team. All right, this guy right behind me is Kensuke Kimura. Makoto mumbled while pointing at the guy behind him who was dressed in ash-gray tracksuit with a notebook in his hand. Nice to meet you, Coach Kensuke. Hiro bowed his head and greeted the coach. Likewise, nice to meet you too, Kensuke replied. And as both of them finished exchanging greetings with each other, Makoto cleared his throat. Go and change your clothes, Hiro. I'll introduce you to the players. Saying such, Makoto dismissed him. He then quickly changed his clothes in the sidelines and rushed towards the side where the players and the coaches were gathered. Upon seeing Hiro behind him, Makoto then cleared his throat and spoke. Everyone pay attention now. I want to introduce you all to your new teammate. And as everybody turned their attention towards the coach, Makoto then introduced Hiro. Everyone, let's welcome your new teammate, Takahashi Hiro. And as Hiro stepped forward upon having his name introduced, the players gave him a big round of applause. I know this sudden promotion sounded a bit strange, but trust me, his addition will definitely improve the team. However, he's only 12 years old right now, so treat him with care. As a senior, you all are responsible for fostering him, so look after him well. Saying such, Makoto finished Hiro's introduction to the team. I'll be under your care, Hiro added while lowering his head. Since Hiro didn't look like 12, all of those players were assuming that he'd be at least 15 years old. But just as they heard about his real age from the mouth of the coach, all of them were shocked by that revelation. With their pupils enlarged and mouth agape, they were looking at him with big eyes. Damn, he's only 12 years old? Is coach joking with us? While some players were lamenting about coach's decision after hearing his real age, there were few players who were amused by him being so young. Interesting, murmured the center forward Tatsuki Siko with a wry smile on his face. Let's see what this genius can do, murmured the starting goalkeeper Naoto Miyashiro. After finishing his introduction, manager Makoto dismissed the players by commanding them to warm up and loosen up their body. And as everybody started to scatter around, Tatsuki Siko, the fair-skinned skinny guy with a shredded muscular body, approached Hiro. I could tell that you've got a rather robust muscular body. With an amused expression on his face, Tatsuki commented while looking at him, up and down. Huh. Hiro was left dumbfounded by his sudden comments. He wasn't expecting to hear such words instead of an introduction or greeting. Since Hiro's half-sleeve jersey and short shocks could hardly conceal his biceps and hamstring muscles, Masato, who himself was somewhat like a gym freak, couldn't help but notice his physique. Sorry about saying such all of a sudden without introducing myself first. I just couldn't control myself after seeing such an extraordinary physique. Apologized Tatsuki for his sudden random comments. By the way, I'm Tatsuki Siko. Nice to meet you. I am Takahashi Hiro. Nice to meet you, Senior Tatsuki. Hiro replied while bowing his head to show some respect to Tatsuki. And while they were chatting, another player named Naoto Miyashiro, also the captain of the U-18 team, joined them. He's just obsessed with gym, so don't mind him. By the way, I'm Naoto Miyashiro, goalkeeper of the team. Spoke Naoto while introducing himself. Quickly turning his body towards Naoto, he then bowed his head and greeted Naoto. Nice to meet you, Senior Naoto. While those two welcomed him with open arms, the same couldn't be said about the rest of the players. Maintaining their distance while occasionally stealing a peek of Hiro, they were somewhat skeptical about his promotion from U-15 team at that age. Don't mind them. They'll open up to you eventually. They're probably worried about your age and talent. Spoke Naoto while reassuring him about the attitude of the rest of the players towards him. However, not every single one of those faces had a concerned expression. Some had a rather mocking expression, while some simply didn't give a shit about him. Right. I'm curious about your ability as well. Aren't you like too young to play in U-18 team? Can you even hold your ground against other guys who are like 4 or 5 years older than you? Questioned Tatsuki out of sheer curiosity. While conversing with each other, they were performing light warm-ups exercises. Just as they were conversing with each other, they heard the voice of Manager Makoto. Everybody gather up. Manager Makoto yelled. Turning their attention towards Makoto, they then hurried towards the manager. After everybody gathered around the manager, Makoto began to explain them about the training drills. That day's training was especially focused on shooting, finishing, and passing. And as he finished explaining about the training drills, he commenced the beginning of the morning training. For the first training drill, the coach made them perform receive and shoot training drill individually. Placing 8 cones in front of the penalty arc, the players were required to make their run from half line towards the cone and perform some high knees as fast as they could at the cone section. And after passing through the cones, Coach Kensuke supplied them with a cross from the flanks, and they were required to trap and shoot the ball towards the post. They could also simply perform one-shot volley. However, the post wasn't left open as there were few mannequins placed randomly in front of the post, which were acting as a defender and also an obstacle between them and the goal. And the shooter was also required to score a goal against the first-choice goalkeeper of U-18 team who was guarding the goalpost, which further increased the difficulty of the drill. After almost every player finished their set of the drill, Hiro stepped forward for his turn. He was the last one to challenge the drill. Until his turn, the sole player who performed exceptionally well in that drill was Tatsuki Siko. Let's see what you can do, mumbled Tatsuki Siko to himself under his breath while looking at Hiro with anticipation. So you're the one mentioned by my brother, murmured a dark-haired, lanky guy who was about 5 feet 8 inches tall. His face and eyes showed no malice or concern towards Hiro. Positioning himself in a steady position, Hiro was preparing to launch himself while awaiting the whistle of the coach. Beep! And as he heard the whistle, Hiro dashed towards the cone as fast as he can. Swiftly performing high knees and passing the cone, he rushed towards the goalpost. Coach Kensuke then supplied him with the cross. The projectile of the cross was a little unpredictable because of the spin on the ball. However, he still managed to trap the ball with his right leg. And as the ball bounced off his feet, he performed a volley. The ball went like a missile towards the post. Naoto, the keeper, tried his best to save the ball and leaped towards the ball. However, even with his long reach, he still couldn't land a touch on the ball and ended up conceding the goal. It was the only 4th goal he conceded during that training drill. The smile on the face of the players at the sidelines who were anticipating his fall quickly faded away, and instead it was replaced with shock. Their eyes wide open and mouth agape. They were left speechless by his performance. Damn, I never expected him to be this good. With small bumps appearing all over his hands as if he was exposed to the cold wind, Hiro's goal gave Tatsuki goosebumps. Clap, clap, clap. Tatsuki, the center forward, and Kenzuya, the defensive midfielder, both of them clapped their hands and applauded him after watching his brilliant goal. Following their lead, other players started to clap their hands as well. And after witnessing his performance firsthand, they could no longer doubt Hiro's abilities. Hearing the thundering applause of the players, Hiro knew that his skills were recognized by those experienced players in front. With the sides of their lips curling, Manager Makoto and Coach Kensuke both were smiling while exchanging gazes with each other. They could tell that the players of the U-18 had acknowledged Hiro's talents. Keiya, the lanky black-haired guy from earlier who was talking about Hiro, was smiling as well. Unlike his younger brother Yuya, who had an insecure personality, Keiya was different. Keiya was open-minded and had a professional mentality, meaning he wasn't the type of player who'd demean or insult the talented players. Instead, he was the type of player who'd try to get close to the talented players to learn from them, no matter if that player was younger or older than him. And That was one of the reasons why he had made it so far into professional football. There were also rumors that there were several J2 clubs who were already showing interest in him because of his talents. Although he wasn't as talented as the prodigious player of the team, he didn't let those things hold him back. And instead, he pushed his limits and improved him rather than crying or acting jealous of the other's talents. And because of that unwavering mentality, nobody could doubt his hard work and his willingness to learn. Hiro then turned towards them and bowed his head. And after bowing his head, he ran towards them and joined them. The training continued normally after that unbelievable performance from Hiro. The only difference was that after that first performance, almost everybody in the team started to get friendly with him and accepted him despite his young age. Finally, after few passing and shooting drills, the training came to an end with a pass-paced rondo. Soaked in sweat, Hiro took off his jersey as the coach announced the end of the morning training. The coaches then ordered few of the players to pick the balls and sort the training equipments. After commanding such, they then headed out with the data they gathered during the training. And as Hiro was preparing to head out, few of the players approached him. "You're definitely talented. No wonder the coach promoted you to the U.A.T team despite being so young." One of the players with brown hair praised Hiro for his earlier performance. "Indeed, at this pace you might debut even before us." Another player joked, Now, don't put such pressure on him. Remember, he's still only 12 years old." Kazuya, the defensive midfielder, interrupted and reminded everyone of Hiro's age. Being the most mature player in the team, he purposely defended Hiro. The praises continued as other players made their way out of the pitch. However, even after noticing his skills, there were still some players who were not happy about him joining the team. Since their spot in the team was in danger, they looked extremely anxious. And thus, until the last moment, they refused to exchange any words with him. Since he didn't want to cause any troubles, despite being aware of the cold stares some players were showing towards him, Hiro intentionally ignored their cold stares. And instead, he only focused his attention on those who were acting friendly towards him. And it wasn't his first time getting such cold stares from the players around him. After all, even during his first day at the club, he got a lot of those kind of stares. I was indeed right. Look at those abs, wings, and chest. With his eyes sparkling, Tatsuki spoke with a cheerful voice while walking towards him. Tatsuki then took off his jersey as well. Why is he taking off his jersey now? Hiro thought while looking at him. Tatsuki's weird behavior left everybody dumbfounded. Flaunting his abs and muscles, he then started to strike different body-building poses as if he was some kind of bodybuilder. While striking a side chest pose, Tatsuki then spoke in a serious tone. As Socrates once said, "It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." Ha ha. Unable to hold back their laughter, Hiro and the others burst into laughter after hearing Tatsuki's philosophical quote, instead of acting impressed. However, their laughing didn't bother Tatsuki in any way, and he still continued to flaunt his muscles without any stop. "Let him be. He's like this. If you continue to pay attention to him, you'll get late for school. So let's leave." Saying such, Naoto then asked Hiro to leave the pitch with him. While exiting the pitch after the end of the morning training, Hiro turned his gaze towards the U.15 pitch in hopes of finding some of his friends on the ground. However, the U.15 pitch was totally empty. With nobody in the pitch, their training had ended about 15 minutes earlier than theirs. Even at the canteen, he didn't meet any of his friends. Although he did find some of the reserve players from U.15 at the canteen whom he wasn't much familiar with, he didn't find any of his friends. With nothing special, that morning's breakfast consisted of some chicken breast, rice, vegetable soup, and orange juice. Sitting alongside the U.18 players, he had his breakfast. And maybe because of that, the reserve players from U.15 team also didn't dare to approach him. Quickly finishing his breakfast, he then headed toward his room to get dressed for the school. And after changing into his school uniform, Hiro then hurriedly rushed towards the school bus. As usual, Shun had saved a spot for him. Raising his hands above his head, Shun then gestured Hiro to come towards him. While walking towards Shun, he could feel a lot of gazes which were pointed towards him. Although getting stared at wasn't anything unusual for him, those stares at that moment were very different. While some of those stares were full of admiration and happiness, most of those stares were full of jealousy. Gnashing their teeth, some players were looking at him coldly, as if he had robbed him of their most precious thing. However, that was completely within his expectations. After all, he had been promoted to the U.18 team in less than a month of joining the club, while there were players in the U.15 team who weren't even sure of their promotion despite playing for so long. "Congratulations, Hiro." Hidetaka and Yugo congratulated Hiro while he was making his way towards Shun. "Thank you." While nodding his head and thanking them with a smile on his face, Hiro continued to walk towards his seat. Along the way, he heard congratulatory words from many players. With no change in their facial expressions, Shun, Yuya, and Shunna, all three of them were acting as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, guys." Hiro greeted them and tried to start a conversation. However, they still didn't reply anything. What's wrong with him? He thought while taking his seat, silently. For a while, they spoke nothing. However, just as the bus started to move, Shun punched him lightly on his arm. "You cheeky bastard. You didn't even tell me about your promotion." Shun spoke, sounding somewhat angry. "It happened so fast that I couldn't get the time to tell you," spoke Hiro in an apologetic tone while rubbing the part of his hand where he got hit by Shun. "We literally live in the same room, you bastard," replied Shun while pouting. "All right. Sorry. I just forgot to tell you. Apologize, Hiro, after hearing Shun's reply. It's alright, you bastard. I don't want to hear your apology. After all, it's only a matter of time. From next season onwards, I'll be playing with the U.A.T as well. Replied Shun with a smile on his face. Alright. Congratulations for your promotion. Shun added while patting Hiro on his back. At that same time, Shunta, who was in front of him, stood from his seat and turned towards him. And as Shunta faced Hiro, his face lit up. Shunta then opened his mouth. Congratulations, Hiro. Thank you, guys. Replied Hiro with a smile on his face. And, as they finished congratulating him, they then started to ask him about his training experience with the U.A.T team. Did you get to play against Naoto Miyashiro? How was he? Was he better than me? Asked Shun while looking him in the eye. Shun was really curious about who was better, he or Naoto. Even though the answer was quite obvious, he was still comparing himself to the fourth-choice goalkeeper of a professional team. Yeah, I have also seen him play against the pro teams. And despite being so young, he never looked intimidated. I still remember his performance against Vissel Kobe. And damn, in that game, he conceded only a single goal. And that goal was against Iniesta as well. Can you believe that he had already played against world-class talents? His brows raised and his tone sharpened. Shunta mumbled with an excited look on his face. He dashed. Just as Hiro was about to speak, Yuya interrupted him with his own opinions. Yeah, that goal was a banger. Although we lost the game 1 o'clock. But in that game, Naoto played really well despite being 17 years old at that time. Yuya intoned. Seeing them talking nonstop, Hiro kept his mouth shut. Without uttering a single word, he kept on looking at them while listening to their chatters. Not that he didn't want to speak anything, but they simply didn't give him any opportunity to present his opinions. Despite asking him question first for an entire bus ride, those three kept on talking, giving Hiro no chance to speak. And only after the bus stopped in front of their school did they realize that they couldn't hear anything about the U.A.T team. Seems like we talked way too much. Spoke Keiya while scratching his scalp. Yeah, we didn't even get to hear about the U.A.T team. Added Shunta. Don't look at me now. It was all you guys who kept on talking without a break. Sometimes I wonder if you guys will grow up to be like those gossiping Annies of the neighborhood. Saying such, Hiro rose from his seat while grabbing his bag. Listening to Hiro, they looked at each other. Images of them dressed like aunties flashed before their eyes as they looked at each other. Shaking their head vigorously, they then looked at Hiro with a rather irritated look on their face. But Hiro was nowhere to be seen. Oh wait, you cheeky bastard. Saying such in an irritated tone, they then rose from their seat and chased Hiro, who was already at the door of the bus. Getting off from the bus, they then headed towards their class. While walking to his classroom, he kept wandering his eyes, searching for Masao. But he was nowhere to be seen. Thinking that he was inside the classroom, Hiro then entered the classroom. While entering the classroom, he looked at Masao's seat. However, the seat was completely vacant. He kept on wandering his gazes all over the classroom. However, he was still nowhere to be seen. Good morning, Hiro. You're here, Hiro. How was your holiday? The girls in his classroom quickly surrounded him as he entered the classroom. He tried to ignore them as much as he could. However, they still continued to flock over him like swarms of mosquitoes gathered around a sweaty person. Since he couldn't avoid them, he tried to put up with them until the start of the class while maintaining a smile on his face. The teacher's coming, shouted Rin while entering the classroom. Finally, as Rin entered the classroom and lied to them about the arrival of the teacher, they dispersed. You've yet to repay me for my previous helps, and now you owe me even more, giggled Rin as he placed his bag and took his seat. Since he still had that mission, help Masao regain back his confidence pending, Hiro couldn't help but wonder about the reason behind the absence of Masao. Curious about Masao's absence, Hiro then asked Rin about Masao. Do you know anything about Masao? Asked Hiro while turning his gaze towards Masao's empty seat. As if Masao was an invisible person, almost nobody in his class cared even a little about his absence. In the back seat, Masato and his gangs were acting as if nothing had happened. Chatting and joking, they all had big wide smile on their faces. I don't know much, but I'm sure Masato and his gangs knows about it. Spoke Rin while striking his chin. I heard that fox-faced Kitsu talking about Masao in the restroom about a few days ago. Continued Rin while looking at one of the guy in the back. But they'll probably ignore us if we ask them. Spoke Hiro, sounding somewhat disappointed. Alright, I heard that there are also other students from Himawari Elementary School in our school. If you're that curious, then we can ask them as well. But why are you so curious about him? Continued Rin. So he studied in Himawari Elementary School. Thought Hiro after hearing the name of the school, which Masao studied before. Since he's our classmate, we should at least try to find out the reason behind his absence. Don't you think so? Spoke Hiro, sounding somewhat concerned about Masao. His eyes sparkling and his voice sounding excited. Rin spoke while staring at Hiro. I never knew that you were this considerate Hiro. Although I am concerned about him. But I'm simply asking about him because of the mission. Thought Hiro while trying to avoid locking eyes with Rin. Talking such, they continued their conversation until the start of the class. And only when the homeroom teacher entered the classroom, they stopped their conversation. During the lunch break, Hiro and Rin went to other sections to talk to the students who were familiar with Masao's past. Although Shun and the other guys did come to his class to fetch him, he declined their invitation to find out about Masao that day. Since he couldn't stay at the school after the end of the school and had to head to the hostel right after the school, lunch break was the only free time he got during his time at the school. Is there anyone from this class who studied in Himawari Elementary School? Shouted Rin, while standing at the door of the Class 7D. A fair-skinned, meek-looking guy with glasses rose his hands above his head, meekly. Perfect. Rin spoke to himself and waved his hands while gesturing Hiro, who was waiting outside the classroom, to enter the classroom with him. Since a lot of students in the classroom had gone outside to eat their lunches, there weren't much students in the classroom at that moment. Isn't he that guy who plays football really well? Yeah, he's that same guy who plays football with the seniors. Looking up close, he indeed looks damn handsome. I heard that even Minami, the school goddess, is chasing him. The students in Class 7D started to gossip as he entered the classroom. Since all of the girls in that classroom had gone to the football ground to watch him play football, only some boys were present at the classroom at that moment. Can we talk for a while? Questioned Rin after walking close to the guy with the glasses. The guy with the glasses nodded his head. Rin then shook his head around to see if anyone was spying on him. He then cautiously leaned closer to the guy with the glasses and whispered in his ear, "You said that you studied at Himawari Elementary School. So do you happen to know anything about Masao? Masao Kuramoto, the chubby guy?" Listening to Rin's questions, the guy hesitated to answer anything. Noticing the hesitancy of the guy with the glasses, Hiro couldn't hold back himself. Thus he then, while frowning his brows, asked the guy with the glasses, "Look, we're his friends. And he hasn't come to school for almost about a week now. So we're only worried about him." Noticing Hiro's expression, the guy then finally opened his mouth. Even back then, Masao used to be introverted. He was often ignored by other students in the class because of his body language and shyness. And even back then in school, he was often bullied by the students in the class. But why was he getting bullied? Interrupted Hiro. Hearing Hiro's questions, the guy with the glasses frowned his brows. His face darkened as beads of sweats started forming over his forehead. Seeing the expression of the guy in front, Hiro could tell that the guy was somehow involved. But still he didn't put pressure on him to reveal the reason. "It's all right if you're not comfortable with sharing the reason with us." Hiro tried to reassure the guy. Gnashing his teeth, the guy with the glasses then squeezed some words out of his mouth. "No, I must confess. Although he was fat, he used to be a gentle kid. Unlike some of us, he didn't study with us from the beginning. During our 3rd year at the school, he transferred to our school from some other school. And before he transferred to our school, I was the one who used to get bullied because of my glasses, appearance, and skinny body. Even though I did nothing wrong to anyone, the strong kids in my school often bullied me because of my attire and appearance. Unlike most kids in my school, I come from a poor family. And because of that, I couldn't afford fancy school accessories like the rest of them. And due to that reason, I was always left out. The students in the class often mocked me for carrying same school bag, wearing the same worn-out shoes, and untidy uniform. At first, I only got mocked. However, once when I couldn't take it any more of their mocking behavior anymore, I stood up to them. But I was too powerless to fight against those strong kids. They beat me up real bad." Hearing his story, Hiro and Rin, both of them gritted their teeth and clenched their fist. Rage bubbling within them boiled like burning tar. Still, Hiro continued to listen to his story without interrupting him. Even though they had approached him to inquire about Masao, they just couldn't ignore another person who had suffered through a lot. Since Hiro himself had gone through such painful experience once in his previous life, the mocking comments made by others, the mocking gazes he felt after losing his abilities, he could never forget those experiences. Although Hiro was holding back himself, the same couldn't be said to Rin. Unable to control his anger any further, he burst out, "Why didn't you complain to the teacher or your parents?" Naive as he was, he blurted out the most practical thing one would do in that kind of situation. "I complained about the bullying to our teachers. But since we all were kids, they only gave them warning. After that, the bullying got even more severe. I went home with a swollen face. But despite that, I didn't want to worry my parents. So I always made excuses and lied to them about my injuries. But how long could I lie? They eventually saw through my lies and went to school to complain about my injuries. However, do you know what they did after receiving the complaints from my parents? They threatened us instead. Since I was studying on scholarship, they threatened us that they'd cancel my scholarship if we reveal about the bullying to other people. And they said that they'll also sue us for damaging their reputation. Since they could afford a lawyer and we couldn't, our loss was inevitable. So we dropped the complaints. Although after the complaints, I didn't get beat up like I used to. I was still bullied by Masato and other kids. And around in the middle of the year, Masao transferred to our school. For some months, he couldn't interact well with other people in our class. And I had to maintain my distance with him. But despite that, he stood up for me when I was getting bullied by Masato and others. And that was the biggest mistake he did. After saying such, his voice started to shake all of a sudden. His eyes filled with guilt. He struggled to speak. And after that, they changed their targets. And they started to bully him instead, right? Questioned Hiro while looking at him. The guy with the glasses only nodded his head without uttering anything. He helped you. Then why didn't you help him? Exasperated Rin. I couldn't. I know I was being selfish. But somewhere in my mind, I was glad that I could finally get rid of them. Shuddered the guy with the glasses. The guy with the glasses continued to share his painful past with the two of them. And hearing his painful experience made them pity him. However, just as he mentioned about his selfishness, Rin couldn't hold him back. His sympathy quickly turned into rage. Thud! Slamming his hands on the table in front. Rin rose from his seat and exasperated. How could you do that to the person who helped you when you needed the help? Rin's sudden meltdown startled everyone in the classroom. Are they bullying Shotaro? Noticing Rin's face full of anger, the other boys present in the classroom started to gossip about him and Hiro. Although Hiro too was startled by Rin's sudden meltdown, Hiro quickly regained his composure. Shotaro's body shivering and his face pale, he struggled to form any words. Upon noticing Shotaro's face filled with horror, Hiro grabbed Rin's arm and pulled him down. Whispering softly, Hiro asked him to take his seat. Calm down, Rin. Look, you've scared him. And as Rin took his seat, Hiro then apologized to everyone for causing such a ruckus. Sorry, everyone. We're just talking about something. However, seeing Shotaro's pale face, they simply couldn't bring themselves to believe Hiro's words. And hence they continued their gossips. Hearing their gossips, Hiro could pretty much predict that those students in the classroom would later spread some bad rumors about him and Rin by the end of lunch break, if he didn't clear their doubts and confusion at that moment. Quick, apologize to him, mumbled Hiro meekly while maintaining a smile on his face. Why should I? Still angry about Shotaro's selfishness, Rin hesitated to apologize to him. Look around you, you fool, mumbled Hiro. Rin then took a peek around himself, and just by looking at everyone's faces, Rin could tell that they were speaking ill of him and Hiro. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get angry at you, apologized Rin after noticing the gaze of other students present in the classroom. See, we're not bullying him. We're just talking about some stuffs, spoke Hiro awkwardly and tried to clear their misunderstandings. To help clear their ill image, Hiro then politely questioned Shotaro, are we bullying you? Shotaro meekly shook his head. See, we're not bullying him, spoke Rin with an awkward smile on his face. However, some students still didn't buy their words and kept on gossiping. Just then Shotaro, the guy with the glasses, opened his mouth. I was afraid that if I try to defend him, they'll once again turn their attention towards me. And I was just too afraid of facing that same experience once again. And I was also just too powerless to stand up to them. I know it all sounds as excuses, but it's the truth. Shotaro still couldn't bring himself to look them in the eyes. And by that time his chin had almost sunk into his chest. Remembering his painful past, Hiro then tried to cheer him up. You haven't done anything wrong. You're just scared. And it's completely natural to be scared when facing danger. So you don't need to feel guilty. Even after hearing such words from Hiro, Rin was still not satisfied with such reasons. Unsatisfied with such vague reasons, he was about to utter something totally immature. But before he could open his mouth, underneath the table, Hiro grabbed his hands and stopped him from speaking anything further. Thank you for saying such, spoke Shotaro meekly, feeling slightly better. It's all right, but was that all what happened to Masao? Continued Rin in a polite manner. I don't know much, since I got placed in another section after that semester. But I heard that he was involved in a serious accident, mumbled Shotaro. What kind of accident? Asked Rin out of sheer curiosity. Keiya Shihashi, the guy who transferred to our school in the 5th year. Just after joining our school, I heard that he and Masao became best friends. I heard that he also defended Masao and protected him. And I could tell just by looking that after Keiya's arrival, Masao was freed from bullying. Keiya, being a really good footballer, probably also encouraged Masao to play football. And that's how Masao even started to play football during his 5th year of elementary school. However, in that same year, something terrible happened to Keiya. While speaking such, Shotaro then stopped all of a sudden. With his face turning pale, he then struggled to speak anything. Curious about Keiya, Rin questioned, what happened to him? He was murdered. Shotaro shuddered. As Shotaro mentioned about murder, the ambience around them got silent all of a sudden. Murder? Mumbled Rin with his eyes wide open and mouth agape. Hiro, who was sitting just beside Rin, kept his poker face and didn't show any changes in his facial expression. Yeah. Although the teachers and other staff members tried to control the spread of the information as much as they could, the news regarding Keiya's murder was still spread all over the school. Although because of the teachers' efforts the news didn't become a big issue, and eventually a lot of students even forgot about that incident. But I still don't get it. How was Masao involved in that incident? Interrupted Rin. Masao was with Keiya when Keiya was murdered. The incident happened in an abandoned alleyway. I heard that they had agreed to meet each other after school to play some football, and because of that Keiya was waiting for Masao in the alleyway during the evening time. Unfortunately, a psychopath serial killer was also roaming around that area at that time. And I heard that Masao was there when the killer was stabbing Keiya. Although I'm not sure if that's what happened. But I heard that when the killer was just about to finish his killing by chopping Keiya's fingers, Masao arrived at the scene. And as soon as he saw Keiya's body covered with wounds and bloods, Masao started to scream. Hearing Masao's painful scream, the people living down in the alleyway quickly hurried towards them. And that alerted the killer. So he had to escape in a hurry. However, because of that rush, he forgot to carry his weapon and bag. And thus, he couldn't completely erase the evidence. Because of the killer's carelessness, he got caught later. And only after he was caught, it was known that the killer was a 38-year-old salaryman, neatly dressed in office uniform. One could hardly tell that he was such a ruthless killer. From his house, the police confiscated 17 fingers of kids of different age positioned in some kind of weirdly drawn magic circle. As if he was some kind of cultist, his house was filled with books related to magic and weirdly drawn circles with human fingers. That psychopath had killed 18 people, including Keiya, and he was obsessed with fingers. Mentioning everything which he knew about the incident, Shotaro then stopped talking to catch a moment of breather. As Shotaro mentioned about the deeds of the psychopath, a shiver ran down Hiro's spine. Damn, he had to go through such terrible experience as a kid. Mumbled Hiro, feeling concerned about Masao after hearing about the incident. Indeed, he didn't even attend school for almost about a month after that incident. And Masato and the other bullies made it even worse. They took their bullying even further by mentioning about the incident. They even started to joke about incident. While speaking such, Shotaro then clenched his fist. His face started to turn red as he arched his brows and gnashed his teeth. He then, while gritting his teeth, squeezed some words out of his mouth. I wish, instead of Keiya, it should have been them. Just by looking at Shotaro's face and listening to Shotaro's words, Hiro could tell just how much Shotaro loathed those bullies. Rin, who was sitting beside him, had almost the same reaction as that of Shotaro. He too was angry about the behavior of those bullies. It's totally natural for you to feel such a way towards those bullies. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel that way either. But if you say such, then will there be any difference between you and them? Questioned Hiro while trying to reassure Shotaro. Since Hiro believed that hatred will only sprout further hatred, Hiro wanted to free Shotaro from the shackles of hatred and revenge. How could you be so calm, even after hearing about such evil deeds, Hiro? Intoned Rin with somewhat irritated face. I'm angry, and my blood's boiling as well, Rin. And I won't deny that their deeds were wrong. But Rin, remember, hatred will turn into revenge. And that revenge will further breed misfortunes. Spoke Hiro. Then nobody should punish them for such deeds? Exasperated Rin. They should be punished. No, they must be punished. Either by God, or by someone else. Mumbled Hiro while looking Rin in the eyes. But you should probably apologize to Masao and move on. You've got your future ahead. You need to think of your parents. They've sacrificed a lot for you. So don't waste your time and disturb your mind with thoughts of those bullies. Continued Hiro while turning his gaze towards Shotaro. Ding! Zong! Finally, just as Hiro was about to finish his words, the school bell rang and the lunch break came to an end. Rising from their seats, just as Rin and Hiro were about to head out, Hiro paused all of a sudden. Looking back at Shotaro's face, which displayed a mixed emotions of anger, sadness, guilt, and repentance, Hiro spoke. The past has already passed, so don't traumatize yourself with those thoughts of past. Just apologize to Masao and move on, because what you did that time was wrong as well. Those bullies will get punished sooner or later. So just focus on your life in the present and move ahead. Speaking such, Hiro then left the classroom. Hearing such words, Shotaro's eyes moistened. Although he couldn't let go of his hatred that easily, still he felt somewhat relieved after revealing the things he had built up inside his heart. As if he had just dropped a heavy weight which he had been carrying for several years. He felt as light as feather after revealing the things which he had been hiding inside his heart for several years. Droplets of tears rolled down his eyes and fell on the table in front. But before anybody could notice his teary eyes, he quickly wiped off the tears from his eyes. Standing in front of the lectern, Haruki-sensei, the history teacher, was teaching about First World War to the students present in the classroom. Most of the students present in the classroom were ardently listening to his lectures while keeping their gazes fixated at the textbook. Hiro himself was doing the same as others. However, unlike others, only his gaze was fixated at the book. His consciousness was wandering elsewhere. What can I do to make those guys realize their mistakes? It's not like I can beat them up, although I can do that as well. But I'm not sure that I can take on that many kids by myself, since I haven't trained myself in any martial arts. But I doubt that they'd realize their mistakes just by getting beaten. So what should I really do? Thought Hiro while staring at his textbook. Unable to handle the Axis by themselves, the Allies then negotiated USA to help them turn the tides of the war. Spoke Haruki. Although he was pondering about something else, that particular sentence from Haruki-sensei caught his attention. With the sides of his lips curling, Hiro then suddenly thought of an idea. Yeah, that's right. I just need to make them taste the taste of their own medicine. One after the other, several teachers came and left the classroom. Having developed a unique talent of avoiding teachers' gazes by acting as if he was paying attention to the lectures, Hiro avoided getting scolded by the teachers despite not paying any attention to the lectures. Ding! Zong! And as the sound of the school bell chimed in, the lectures finally came to an end. As usual, the girls in his classroom began to flock over him. Despite rejecting them countless times, those girls in his classroom never stopped asking him for his social media accounts. They were as persistent as mosquitoes. Since he couldn't use his mobile phones in the hostel except during his free time on weekends, to get rid of them once and for all, he decided to give them his Facebook account. Phoenix, I'll provide my Facebook account. But let me tell you, I don't use my account much since I can't use my phone. But even after that, if you guys want my account, I'm willing to provide you all with my account. Hiro mumbled. The girls who were flocking all over him nodded their head. Sigh. Seeing them nodding their head, Hiro heaved a deep sigh. After that, he wrote his Facebook account on a piece of paper and handed it to the girls in front. Carrying his backpack, he then left the classroom. Pouting his face, Rin was waiting for him outside the classroom. Noticing Rin's expression, Hiro then casually questioned Rin. What's wrong with your face? You traitor. How could you give them your social media account when you haven't even given it to me? Intoned Rin in somewhat irritated tone. If I didn't give it to them, then I wouldn't have been able to squeeze my way out from them. Spoke Hiro casually. Also the account which I've given them, I don't use it much. Plus in hostel, we can't even use mobile phones anyway, except during free time and weekends. Continued Hiro. Hiro then lightly patted Rin on his back and spoke. I'm thinking of making a new Instagram account to chat with my friends and family. So when I open that account, I'll add you. For now, let's go. Saying such, Hiro then walked away before anybody else from the classroom could catch up to him. He didn't want to waste any more time with them, since from that day onwards he'll have to stay overtime for extra training. Upon hearing such words coming out from mouth of Hiro, Rin's face brightened up and a smile formed on his face. Just like a golden sun coming out from behind the black clouds after a heavy rain, Rin's gloomy face brightened. Wait for me. Shouting such, he hurriedly rushed towards Hiro. While walking out of the main building, Hiro and Rin met Shotaro along the way. At first he was thinking of fleeing away, but he still hadn't thanked Hiro and Rin for listening to the things which he had been hiding within him. Thus, instead of fleeing away, he then approached Hiro. While bowing his head, he then genuinely thanked Hiro. Thank you very much for listening to my story. I'll head to Masao's home and apologize to him. Also, my name is Shotaro. It's all right, Shotaro. You don't have to thank us. Because of his humble nature, Hiro didn't want Shotaro to thank him. No, please let me express my gratitude. After all, only because of you two, I can finally get rid of those thoughts built up inside me. It had been gnawing me from inside from a long time. So please let me thank you. While still bowing his head, Shotaro mumbled. Upon noticing the scene of Shotaro bowing in front of Hiro and Rin, students who were passing by them misunderstood the whole scene happening at that moment. Trying to avoid them, some students even impetuously ran away as they witnessed the scene of Shotaro bowing in front of Hiro and Rin. Analyzing their facial expressions and body language, Hiro could tell exactly what they were thinking. Are they bullying that meek-looking four-eyed guy? It's my pleasure to help you, but you should raise your head now, or else some people will think I'm some kind of bully. Hastily appreciating Shotaro's gratitude, Hiro tried to lift Shotaro's head up. Yeah, you'll make us look like bullies instead, added Rin with an awkward smile on his face. Sorry about that. That was not my intention. Apologizing to Hiro and Rin, Shotaro again tried to bow his head. However, Hiro quickly caught him and stopped him from lowering his head furthermore. Why do you always bow your head? Please don't do that again, requested Hiro, sounding somewhat helpless. And before you bow your head again, I'm telling you, don't do it. Hiro continued. After that, the three of them started to head out of the main building while conversing with each other. All right, you told us that you weren't friends with Masao. So how will you reach him? Like, do you even know the way to his house? Curiously questioned Hiro while walking towards the main gate. Well, although I wasn't friends with him, I didn't know where he lives. In the past, I wanted to thank him countless times for standing up for me. So I often followed him to thank him. And sometimes I even followed him to his home. But I could never muster my courage. Shotaro mumbled meekly. Hearing Shotaro's sentence, a shiver ran down Rin's spine. While frowning his brows, Rin then joked, Damn, are you some kind of stalker? Obviously not, Shotaro intoned with a flustered face. Chill dude, I'm only joking, Rin replied. Okay guys, this is where we part, mumbled Hiro while pointing at the bus in front of the main gate. It was nice meeting you, Shotaro. Although we're not from the same class, if you want to hang out with us, you can come to the football ground. Maybe we can play some football together. Saying such, Hiro then rushed towards the bus parked in front of the main gate. Because of the earlier incident with the girls in his classroom and Shotaro, that day he was the last one to board the bus. Shun, Yuya, Shunta, and others had already boarded the bus, and the bus was only waiting for his arrival. Quickly taking a seat beside Shun, Hiro avoided the confrontation with the driver. And just as he boarded the bus, the driver asked, Has everyone boarded the bus? The players in the bus replied in unison, Yes, sir. The bus then started moving. To implement his earlier idea, Hiro required the help of Shun and several other players from the club, especially Shun, since he was the most friendly guy out of all his friends, and his friend circle was big compared to others. Shun, do you have any tough friends? Casually asked Hiro. Tough? What do you mean by tough? Asked Shun with a dumbfounded look on his face. Like someone who looks strong or someone who knows how to fight. I don't know a few guys who are learning karate, judo, and kendo. But why do you want to know about them? Shun questioned with a confused look on his face. And all of a sudden, he abruptly turned his head towards Hiro. Did you get into a fight? Shun inquired with a flustered face. I know. You know how much I hate fighting. So why would I fight with others? Hiro replied calmly while trying to reassure Shun that he was worrying over nothing. Leaning his back against the seat, Shun heaved a sigh of relief. Sigh. Then why are you asking such questions? Asked Shun. Well, I learned few things about Masao today during lunchtime, so I wanted to help him. What kind of things? Curiously questioned Shun. Hiro then revealed him about the past experiences of Masao and Shotaro. From start to finish, without missing a single point, he revealed everything. Yuya and Shunta, who were just in front of them, silently joined in on the conversation. Without speaking anything, they kept on listening Hiro's elaboration. So, I wanted to teach those bullies a lesson. And for that I've got a perfect plan in my head. But to implement that plan, I'll need your help. Finally, after elaborating everything, Hiro finished his sentence. I see, murmured Shun. I'll definitely help you. But are you going to beat them up? If you're thinking of doing such, then I'd have to decline. Continued Shun with a serious look on his face. No, don't worry about it. I'm not going to involve myself in any way. Hiro replied. If so, then I can introduce you to some of my friends. Although I'm not sure what you're going to do. But I trust you, Hiro. So don't break my trust. Finally, after hearing Hiro's response, Shun agreed to help him. Don't worry. I won't. Nodded Hiro with a grin on his face. Although I believe that violence shouldn't be used to educate someone, but to teach those bastards some lesson, a little violence is needed. So I'm sorry, my friend. Hiro mumbled to himself. Even though Shun wasn't asking him about his intentions, Yuya and Shunta, both of them, were extremely curious about his plan. With his eyes gleaming with curiosity, Yuya was as curious as a fish. Unable to wait, he eagerly inquired Hiro right away. Hiro, how will you punish them? Will you threaten them? Shunta joined. However, Hiro refused to reveal his plans. Although his plan was quite simple, he still refused to reveal his intentions. He was simply going to make use of the power of those strong guys to educate Masato and his gangs. Just like how they behaved with Masao, he was going to make them taste the feeling of getting beaten, threatened, and mocked for no reason. As there's a saying, karma is a bitch. Hiro was going to make them believe in karma. He was going to show them that karma is actually a bitch. Yuya and Shunta kept on complaining all along the way because of Hiro's unresponsiveness. However, Hiro still kept his lips tightly sealed. Although he got help from Shun, he wasn't still done. He also asked help from the players of G.O.A.T team as well. After the end of the evening training, Hiro approached Tatsuki and few other guys of G.O.A.T team who were friendly towards him to seek for their help. And surprisingly, Tatsuki Seko and Naoto Miyashiro agreed with his request. However, they weren't willing to do him that favor for free, as they say that nothing's actually free in this materialistic world. Both of them had their own demands for doing him that favor. I'll introduce you to a delinquent friend of mine from my class who's also training to become an MMA fighter. Spoke Tatsuki. You're friends with delinquents? Intoned Hiro with his eyes wide open. Hiro was surprised to hear that Tatsuki, a footballer, was friends with delinquent. Well, technically he's not, since he just attained that title because he beat some delinquents who came to fight with him for absolutely no reason. Oh, how I pity that guy. Tatsuki mumbled while making a pitiful face. Then again, his facial expression quickly changed. With the sides of his lips curling, Tatsuki then made his demand for helping him. I'll introduce you to him, but you need to convince the coaches to include me in the extra training that you'll be receiving. Just as Hiro heard about extra training, his eyes opened wide, slightly frowning his brows. Hiro then asked, how did you know about the extra training? Since he hadn't told anyone about the extra training, which he was going to receive from the two coaches, Hiro was pretty shocked to find that Tatsuki knew about the extra training. Hearing Hiro's questions, Tatsuki pretended as if he was trying to remember from where he heard about the extra training, while scratching his chin. And after a few seconds of acting, he lowered his head and whispered in an intimidating manner, the walls have ears too. Suddenly a shiver ran down Hiro's spine as he heard Tatsuki's response. Seeing his scared expression, Naoto, who was standing beside him, spoke while lightly hitting Tatsuki on his back. Now, don't scare him any further. With a dumbfounded look on his face, Hiro began to wonder about the meaning behind Naoto's words. Don't take his joke seriously. He's only playing prank on you. It was Manager Makoto who informed us about your extra training, although he didn't inform about it to every player in the team. To ease our worries, he informed some of the core players in the team about your training so that we don't have to worry about your performance in coming Premier League. Saying such, Naoto tried to clear his doubts. Tatsuki, who was standing right in front of him, burst into laughter and began to apologize while smiling. Sorry. I shouldn't have scared you. Ha ha. As serious as Tatsuki looked, he was also a prankster from within. But why would you need me to convince the coaches if you already know about the extra training? Questioned Hiro after regaining his composure. Well, I already tried my luck, but they wouldn't let me join the training session because it was individually designed for you. Tatsuki replied while frowning his brows. Acting just like a child who was denied of her favorite toy, Tatsuki looked kind of depressed. Just how much are you obsessed with training, you muscle freak? Thought Hiro after listening to Tatsuki's plea. While most players avoided extra training, Tatsuki was a rare fellow who was very fond of extra training. Even in the morning and evening training sessions, he was among those few fellows who never complained about the intensity of the training. I'll talk to the coaches about it, and I'll try my best to convince them, but it'll be entirely up to them whether to accept or reject you, replied Hiro in a calm manner. Just by hearing that much, Tatsuki's face lit up. With his eyes sparkling, he then spoke in a cheerful tone. I knew that I could depend on you. Just why is he this happy to train more? Thought Hiro while contorting his face. Although from outside, he maintained his smile and continued to act as if he was happy for him. While turning his gaze towards Naoto, he then asked Naoto about his condition for helping him. Then what about you, Senior Naoto? What kind of condition do I have to fulfill to get your support? Well, nothing much. I just want to block some of your shots daily. I believe that by training with you, I can improve my reflexes. Naoto presented his condition. Hearing Naoto's condition, Hiro nodded his head and agreed to his request right away. Unlike Tatsuki's request, Naoto's was way simpler. Then I'll introduce you to a friend of mine who happens to be an amateur boxer. Although he'll not beat anyone outside the ring, you can use his looks and aura. He looks pretty intimidating even to me. So I believe he can be of help to solve your problem. Since Hiro couldn't directly ask their help for no reason, and he couldn't even tell them about his plans, Hiro had lied to them that some kids in his school were troubling him. and Naoto and Tatsuki, who believed his lies were only helping him because of that reason as well. Thank you, Senior Naoto. With a smile on his face, Hiro bowed his head to thank the two seniors who were going to help him. Thank you, Senior Tatsuki. After thanking both of them for agreeing to help him, Hiro rushed towards Manager Makoto to start his extra training, which was going to take place in gym that day. As he was running towards Manager Makoto, Hiro began to wonder about few things. Although I did hear about Naoto and Kazuya in my past life, I wonder why I never heard about Tatsuki. Naoto and Kazuya, although didn't perform as per the expectations placed upon them, they were still decent players. And I believe when I was 22, I heard about Kazuya when he was playing for Kyoto Sanga. And if I'm not wrong, Naoto used to play for Urawa Reds as a second-choice goalkeeper. Just what happened to them, for them to degrade so much? Since most of the players from the U-18 team of Kawasaki Frontale were only decent players within Japan in his previous life, he couldn't recall every single one of them. However, seeing Tatsuki's performance on the field and his eagerness to train, it made him wonder why he never heard the name of such a dedicated player in his previous life. Tatsuki Siko. Tatsuki Siko. Tatsuki? Did I forget about him? Or did he encounter some kind of injuries like I did? Wondered Hiro while trying to remember about a player named Tatsuki from Kawasaki Frontale. Since he didn't pay much attention to J-League in his previous life, he wasn't much knowledgeable about the players from the J-League, and he only remembered the names of few of the extraordinary players from his previous life. Well, the way he overtrains himself, he must have injured himself in his previous life, murmured Hiro before joining Manager Makoto. Dressed in a comfortable black-colored tracksuit, Manager Makoto was discussing the results of the training with the positioning coach, Kensuke Kimura. Maybe we should train Kazuya to play more defensively, suggested Coach Kensuke, but I believe he'll shine more while playing as an anchor instead, replied Manager Makoto. And just as Makoto was about to point at his notebook, he noticed Hiro. Oh, you're here, mumbled Makoto while looking at him. He then turned his gaze towards Coach Kensuke and spoke. Let's continue our discussion later in my cabin. Hearing Manager Makoto's proposal, Coach Kensuke nodded his head, and before he left their sight, he looked at Hiro and spoke. You're doing really great. So train well under the guidance of two coaches. Hiro nodded his head and replied, Thank you for your praises, sir. Then I'll see you later in the cabin. Speaking such, Coach Kensuke walked away. Now, then, let's head to the gym, Manager Makoto exclaimed. With Manager Makoto leading the way, he headed towards the gym together with Manager Makoto. From behind him, Tatsuki was gesturing him to talk to Manager Makoto about including him in the extra training. Hiro was planning to vouch for him during the training, but after noticing his enthusiasm, he decided to talk to the coach right away. Sir, mumbled Hiro. Yes, Hiro. Sir, I was thinking of making a proposal. What kind of proposal? I was wondering if Tatsuki-senpai could join me in the extra training. Like with a rival, the training would be even more effective. Don't you think so, sir? Mumbled Hiro with a slight hesitation. The moment Hiro mentioned about Tatsuki, Makoto could guess that Tatsuki had asked him to vouch for him. But even so, he couldn't deny the fact that having a rival would further increase the effectiveness of the training. Thus, he stopped midway and turned around. Waving his hands at Tatsuki, he gestured him to come towards him. With a big wide grin in his face, Tatsuki quickly ran towards Manager Makoto after noticing his hand gestures. While panting heavily as he arrived before Manager Makoto, Tatsuki spoke excitedly. Yes, sir. Clearing his throat, Manager Makoto spoke while pointing at Hiro. Do you want to train with him? Without any delay, Tatsuki gave his answer right away. Yes, sir. Good. Then follow me. Saying such, Manager Makoto began to lead them towards the gym. With the sky dyed in red and orange hues, the ambience around them was starting to get chilly as the sun was on the verge of setting down. The grassy green field at that moment was painted in golden colors. Silhouette of the players, floodlights, stands and mesh fences were all over the pitch. As Manager Makoto unlocked the gym, he signaled the two of them to head inside. Obeying his commands, both of them entered the gym. Partially dark, Hiro's eyes struggled to adapt to the darkness. Since it was already getting dark outside, the light coming from behind him and the window were barely enough to light up the whole room. Walking inside the gym, Hiro felt as if he had entered some kind of dark cave. Wait for a while, I'll turn on the switch. Mumbling such, Tatsuki walked towards the switchboard which was just beside the main door. Click, 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 and just as he turned on the lights, the bright light coming from the LED light bulbs illuminated the whole place bright. Treadmills, dumbbells, exercise balls, ropes, and many more gym equipments were placed in an organized manner inside that huge, spacious gym room. Painted in black, blue, red, and white, the gym was finely decorated. Witnessing that well-organized and finely decorated gym room, Hiro couldn't help but compare it to the gyms he had seen in his previous life. You should probably close your mouth, or else a fly will enter inside your mouth, joked Tatsuki after seeing Hiro's expression. With his eyes gleaming and mouth agape, Hiro was staring at the gym room. Quickly closing his mouth, Hiro then walked further inside. Almost every equipment in that room was still as good as new. Welcome to the gym room of Kawasaki Frontale's youth facility. Equipped with advanced gym equipment, it's even par with the gym of the senior team. Manager Makoto announced with a sense of pride. Indeed, I can tell you since I've been to the senior team's gym. It is indeed par with the senior team's gym. although it's lacking a swimming pool, joked Manager Nozomi while entering the gym room. Noticing Manager Nozomi, Hiro quickly bowed his head and greeted him. Good evening, Manager Nozomi. Good evening, Hiro. Manager Nozomi greeted him back. But I'm not your manager anymore, joked Manager Nozomi. Oh, it seems that we got another player with us, continued Nozomi while looking at Tatsuki. Good evening, Manager Nozomi. Tatsuki quickly bowed his head and greeted Manager Nozomi. You still haven't changed, Seiko. Your hunger for training is still the same, mumbled Nozomi in a friendly manner. But you shouldn't overtrain yourself, Seiko. Although you're talented, you're way too much obsessed with training. Remember, rest is part of training as well. I'll keep that in mind, sir, Tatsuki replied politely. Then, let's start the training. New quest unlocked. Title: Extra training with the coaches. Description: complete the exercises as per the coach's request. Duration: until the start of Premier League. Rewards: silver ticket. Penalty: deduction of random stat and electrocution. Just as Manager Nozomi finished making the announcement of the commencement of the training, Hiro heard the sound of the notification of the system inside his head. But don't I already have another quest pending? Confused by the sudden notification of the quest, Hiro complained. Not because he was unhappy with the quest, but because of the penalty, he was complaining about the quest. Since he couldn't afford to lose any stat, if he wanted to perform well in the Premier League, and also the description of the quest was rather vague, he was rather skeptical to accept another quest at that moment. You do. But both of these quests are completely irrelevant with each other, and both are for your own good. So why are you even complaining? Replied the system in somewhat arrogant manner. Well, that's true as well. Imperceptibly nodded Hiro. But why do I feel that you're being mean? You're just imagining things. While he was having conversation with the system, Manager Nozomi called his name several times. Hiro. Hiro. However, since he was talking with the system, he couldn't hear anything, and thus, he didn't respond anything at all. Unable to hear his response, Manager Nozomi then walked closer towards him and nudged him slightly. Feeling the sudden sensation of touch, Hiro quickly came back to his senses. Acting somewhat startled, he mumbled, "Yes, sir. Let's begin the training." Saying such, he quickly walked towards Manager Makoto as if nothing ever happened. Manager Nozomi, who was standing beside him, was left dumbfounded by his actions. Scratching his scalp with a perplexing look on his face, Nozomi was wondering what just happened in that moment. Taking out 2 bosa balls and some weights, Manager Makoto then made Hiro and Tatsuki perform weighted bosa ball squats to improve their balance. And while the two of them performed the exercise diligently, Manager Makoto noted their performance in his notebook. After few reps of weighted bosa ball squats, Makoto made them perform some reps of lunges, some reps of burpees, some reps of weight lifting, and finally he ended the training with 10 minutes of yoga. By the time they completed the extra training, the sun had completely settled down and the starry sky was filled with shimmering lights of moon and the stars. At 7:40 in the night, their training finally came to an end. Completely drenched in sweat, steam was oozing out of their exhausted, sweaty body. Quite satisfied with their progress, Manager Makoto and Manager Nozomi were looking at the data which they've collected during the training with their lips curled. Huff, huff. Panting heavily, Hiro and Tatsuki, both of them were lying on the gym floor, completely exhausted. Their muscles bulging and sore. They were having difficulty in moving their body. How long are you guys planning on sleeping on the floor? Aren't you guys planning on having dinner? Manager Nozomi spoke sarcastically while looking at them. Just 1 minute more. Tatsuki spoke with great difficulty. At around 8:15, along with Tatsuki, he entered the canteen after having a quick shower. Because of the exhaustion from extra training, both of them walked quite slow and stiffly just like a mechanical robot. And that day the coaches had informed the chefs in advance about his extra training and had specially asked them to prepare him his special diet food, which consisted of chicken breast, avocado, eggs, salmon, some rice, miso soup, and some vegetable salad. Extremely hungry because of the extra training, Hiro's eyes glowed as he witnessed the food prepared for him. Well, that's a lot of food. And we also have chicken breast. Hiro mumbled in awe. Since Hiro was really fond of chicken, he couldn't help but feel excited about the food prepared for him. But why do they look kinda uncooked to me? Noticing the bland color of the chicken breast, Hiro questioned. Yeah, they look kinda uncooked. Tatsuki, who was standing right beside him, nodded his head, seriously. But who cares about the look? Taste is king. Plus I'm really hungry right now. I could eat a whole chicken by myself, mumbled Tatsuki while gulping his saliva. After that, both of them headed toward the table and placed their tray full of food atop the table. And as they sat down, both of them thanked God for providing them food to eat. Thank you for the food. Joining their hands in a namaste, they expressed their gratefulness before eating. Just as Hiro took a bite of the chicken breast, Hiro contorted his face and quickly spat the chunk of chicken breast in his mouth. As unpleasing as the dishes looked, the taste of the food was even worse. With not much spices, the food tasted completely bland. Hiro, who was used to eating food, which were taste buds pleasing, quite didn't like the taste of the bland dinner specially prepared for him. Sir, I think you forgot to add spices, complained Hiro after having a bite of the food prepared for him. Tatsuki, too, spat the food out of his mouth and nodded his head. Yes, sir. The food's kinda bland. Eat what you're getting to eat. The coaches had specially asked me to prepare this dishes for you. So if you have any complaints regarding the food, then complain it to the coaches, not me. An old man in his 50s who was dressed in white chef uniform, standing at the counter, replied in a harsh tone while making a bitter face. That old man, along with few other staff members, were responsible for cooking the food for the players residing in the hostel. And unlike other staff members, that old man was the only one who resided in the hostel. Don't get angry, old man Aniki. We're not complaining about your cooking. I've been eating the food you prepared for more than 3 years, and have I ever complained about your food? In fact, I very much enjoy the food you prepare. But can you please add some salt and pepper? Tatsuki tried to calm the old man with his flattering words. Sunday, November 11th, 2021. With the permission of manager Makoto, Hiro, Tatsuki, and Naoto, the three of them left the hostel at around 11 o'clock in the morning to meet the guys mentioned by Tatsuki and Naoto. However, they didn't mention the real reason to the coach. Instead, they had lied to the coach that they'd be visiting the shopping mall to buy some new clothes. And since Hiro was still new to the city, Naoto and Tatsuki were barely accompanying him. Although their reason was partly truth and partly lie. Casually dressed in dark green-colored hoodie and blue jeans, Hiro was walking along with Tatsuki, who was dressed in dark blue-colored plain sweatshirt and beige-colored casual pants. Naoto, who was dressed in white shirt layered with cream-colored cardigan and navy blue casual pants, was leading the way. Hurry up, guys. Manager Makoto has strictly warned us to be back by 3 in the afternoon, spoke Naoto while leading the way. After walking for a while, they took a cab to get to the shopping mall. And after about 15 minutes of cab drive, they arrived in front of the shopping mall, which they were visiting that day. While Naoto and Tatsuki were managing the cab fare, Hiro was standing in front of the luxurious shopping mall made up of bricks, concrete, and glasses. Fountains, flowers, colored lights, LED billboards. The shopping mall was luxuriously decorated. Many people dressed in different kind of fancy dresses were entering and exiting the shopping mall. Some were carrying a lot of shopping bags in their hands, while some were simply there to enjoy their time. Why are you acting like it's your first time visiting a shopping mall? While slightly nudging Hiro behind his back, Tatsuki questioned. Well, it's actually my first time visiting such a grand shopping mall, murmured Hiro shyly. Since he rarely visited shopping malls, and the ones at his hometown weren't as luxurious as the one he was at that moment, Hiro couldn't help himself from staring at the majestic shopping mall in front of his eyes. Then this brother of yours will show you around the shopping mall today. Proudly stating such, Tatsuki gave Hiro a gentle push behind his back. But before we go, let me put on my mask. I'm afraid if I head inside bare-faced, my fans will recognize me. Tatsuki mumbled with a sense of pride and took out a black-colored mask from his pocket. Since Tatsuki had already debuted for the senior team, he was quite concerned about his image. Although not many of them even remembered his face since he only played 10 minutes, he was still proud about his achievements. As if anybody would even know you. Naoto mumbled meekly in a sarcastic way. While putting on his mask, Tatsuki mumbled, "Did you say something? Cover your eyes too. What if they recognize you just by looking at your eyes?" Naoto replied sarcastically. Tatsuki took Naoto's words seriously and didn't get the sarcasm behind his words. I forgot to bring my shades," mumbled Tatsuki while touching his pockets. "Leave him be. Let's head inside." After that, the three of them headed inside the shopping mall. And as they made their way inside, Tatsuki mumbled, "Just don't be intimidated by Mai. Although he looks kind of intimidating, he's really easygoing person." Hiro only slightly nodded his head without replying anything. Inside a coffee shop, a fair-skinned guy with well-defined facial features was sipping coffee while sitting at a table in the corner, all alone. Although his facial features were well-defined, he had accumulated quite a bit of scars all over his face. His knuckles were bruised, and a layer of dead skin had covered his knuckles. Walking inside the coffee shop, Tatsuki yelled loudly while waving his hands at the black-haired scar-faced guy. "Oh, I am I." Hearing his loud voice, the Batistas of the coffee shop along with several other people present in the coffee shop all turned their attention towards them, giving them cold stares while staring at them with their bulging eyes. They all looked pissed by Tatsuki's loud voice. Shuh. Naoto tried to silence Tatsuki. "Keep your mouth shut, you idiot." At the same time, Hiro, who was tagging along with them, lowered his head and apologized to the people present in the coffee shop for disturbing them. Tatsuki's behavior embarrassed them quite a bit, and after apologizing to the people present in the coffee shop, the three of them quickly made their way towards the black-haired guy with scars all over his face. "You never changed, do you?" chuckled Imai, the black-haired guy. "So he's like this even in school," thought Hiro after hearing Imai's words. The scars in his face and his cold eyes does make him look kinda intimidating, but he's got a warm smile, thought Hiro while looking at the face of Imai, who was conversing cheerfully with Tatsuki and Naoto with a smile on his face. "And who's his friend here?" questioned Imai while looking at Hiro. "Sorry, I forgot to introduce you to him." Tatsuki apologized. "This guy's right here is our new teammate, Takahashi Hiro." Tatsuki introduced Hiro. "Hello, Hiro. I'm Ikuo Imai, friend of Siko, and I'm also friends with Naoto." Imai introduced himself while lowering his head politely. "Nice to meet you, Senior Imai," greeted Hiro while lowering his head. "Senior?" Imai blurted out dumbfoundedly after hearing Hiro call him Senior. "Oh right, I forgot to mention that he's only 12 years old." "Ha ha ha." Tatsuki chuckled. "What 12-year-old?" Imai intoned with his eyes wide open in disbelief. "Yup, that was the kind of reaction I was expecting." Naoto mumbled casually as if he was expecting that kind of reaction from Imai. Ordering few cups of coffee, Hiro then explained to Imai about his plans. Although he didn't mention his real purpose for making him do such things, Hiro thoroughly elaborated his plan to Imai. Since my friend's brother is asking me for help, I won't decline it. However, if it were someone else, I would have already walked away. But consider yourself lucky. Imai agreed to his request, and after talking for a while, the four of them exited the coffee shop. I need to head to restroom, guys. I'll be back. Saying such, Imai separated from them. Although Hiro mentioned everything about his plan to Imai, he still hadn't disclosed everything because of the presence of Naoto and Tatsuki. But just as Imai separated from them, he found a perfect opportunity to disclose his whole plan to him, and hence, he made an excuse to talk to Imai all alone. I also need to use the restroom. Do you want us to come with you? Replied Naoto in a concerned manner. Since Hiro was still new to the shopping mall, they feared that Hiro might not be able to find a restroom on his own. No, I'll just follow Imai. Saying such, Hiro declined their offer. After declining the help of Tatsuki and Naoto, Hiro began to chase after Imai. Senior Imai, wait for me, shouted Hiro while chasing Imai, who was heading towards the restroom. Hearing Hiro's voice, Imai paused all of a sudden. Turning back towards Hiro, Imai spoke politely. Oh, are you heading to the restroom as well? Without replying anything, Hiro simply nodded his head. After walking few steps, the two of them arrived at the restroom. With several compartments, the neatly organized modern restroom was quite empty as well, and besides the two of them, there weren't any other people present in the restroom at that moment. But even so, Hiro still had absolutely no idea on how to disclose his real intention to Imai without angering him. Either he'd have to speak the truth, or else he'll have to make some reasonable excuses to get Imai's help. But either way, he'd have to disclose his true purpose to get his help. Senior Imai, have you ever gotten bullied? Asked Hiro meekly while trying to start a conversation with Imai. Well, not really. Shaking his head, Imai started to walk towards one of the compartment to finish his business. Although if you can count the abusive training of my coaches as bullying, then yes, I've been bullied. Spoke Imai sarcastically before entering one of the compartment. Although Hiro really had no actual business to attend in the restroom, he still entered one of the compartment to not make him seem suspicious. However, little did he knew, Imai was somewhat suspicious of him from the moment he mentioned about his made-up story to Imai. Were there not any bullies in your school? Asked Hiro while forcing his pee. Well, there were a few of them in my elementary school, and it's the same in the middle school as well. Casually replied Imai while urinating. Although Imai didn't mind Hiro asking about such stuffs while he was peeing, his suspicions towards Hiro was growing even further after hearing Hiro's repeatedly asked questions. But why are you asking me about bullies all of a sudden? If you're worried about the bullies in your school, then I've already told you that I'll help you with it. Mumbled Imai while zipping his pant. But then again, do you really need my help? Like just by observing you, I could tell that you're pretty strong. And since you're already playing professional football despite being only 12 years old, I doubt if anybody would actually dare to bully you. Hearing Imai's response, Hiro went silent all of a sudden. He knew that Imai was getting suspicious of him. After all, his whole story sounded extremely ridiculous. Was he suspicious of me all along? Pondered Hiro while staring blankly at the lock of the door of the compartment. Maybe I should tell him the truth. And just as he came out of the compartment, Imai mumbled casually while washing his hands. From the very beginning, when you told me about your story, I found it really hard to believe it. And after following me to the restroom, you keep on asking about bullies. Yup, he's suspicious of me, thought Hiro after hearing Imai's words. However, Hiro didn't reply anything at all and kept on listening. After turning off the tap, Imai walked towards the hand dryer to dry his hands. And as he finished drying his wet hands, he walked towards Hiro. Squinting his eye and furrowing his brows, he looked extremely serious. Just tell me about your true intention already, spoke Imai in his deep voice. My patience is running out. Noticing Imai's facial expression, he decided to tell him the truth regardless of the consequences. I'm doing this for a friend of mine. He'd been bullied by some bullies. Hiro then elaborated everything he knew about Masao to Imai. Although he didn't mention much about Shotaro, Hiro still told Imai about the generosity of Masao, the tragedy he faced, the bullying he endured. Almost everything which he knew about Masao, Hiro revealed to Imai without mixing any lies, just as it is. So that friend of yours was bullied for no reason. And you're seeking for my help because you want to help him regain his confidence and make those bullies realize their mistake and apologize to your friend. Mumbled Imai while trying to process the information he just received at that moment. Yes, I want to help him to open up, because if he continues to lies like this, I'm sure somewhere in the near future he might even consider ending his life. So I just want him to muster some courage to face his fears, spoke Hiro after revealing his true plans to Imai. At first he was doing all those things for the sake of quest, but as he dived deeper into the story of Masao, he felt sincerely sorry for Masao. After all, in his previous life, he also had ended his life because of some similar reasons. After listening to Hiro's elaboration, Imai paused for a while. Standing in front of Hiro, as if he was in some kind of deep thinking, Imai looked lost in his own thoughts. Upon seeing the expression on Imai's face, Hiro, too, kept his mouth shut. In order to not disturb him, he kept his lips tightly sealed. Outside the coffee shop, Tatsuki and Naoto had been waiting for Hiro and Imai. And since the moment the two of them left for the restroom, 15 minutes had already passed. Continuously tapping his right foot against the floor, Tatsuki was trying his best to hold him back from exploding. Naoto, who was standing right beside him, was simply browsing through his phone without reacting. Finally, as Tatsuki's patience ran out, he abruptly stopped his leg, scrunched his brows, and cussed. F***K. What's taking them this long? Tatsuki's sudden cussing startled Naoto, and he nearly dropped his phone from his hands. Geez, did a demon possess you? Sounding somewhat irritated, Naoto mumbled. Paying no attention to Naoto, Tatsuki shrugged and mumbled. Just how long are they going to take? Finally, after thinking for a while, Imai opened his mouth. Since you're doing this for your friend, I'll help you. Hearing Imai's response, Hiro's lips curled up and a smile appeared in his face. With his eyes gleaming, Hiro mumbled, sounding all excited. Really? You're really going to help me? Since I value friendship very much, I'm doing this for the sake of your friendship. Imai replied in a calm manner. Although I don't like hitting or scaring kids, I'll make use of those useless bunch of delinquent bastards from my class. Continued Imai with a sinister smile on his face. One could tell, just by looking at his smile, that he was planning something really sinister. However, at that moment, the only thing Hiro cared about was Imai's willingness to help him, and thus the feeling of gratitude clouded his vision. Thank you. Hiro lowered his head. Thank you very much. With the help of Imai, he was sure that he could humble those bullies and make them apologize to Masao, and also complete part of his quest at the same time. Although just by humbling those bullies and making them apologize to Masao, Hiro wouldn't solve his problem in its entirety. However, by doing that, Hiro could drastically reduce the chance of Masao skipping the classes. And it could also help Masao to have a better school life. After all, regaining once lost confidence and overcoming from a painful experience required quite a bit of time, and the scar left by such incidents wouldn't heal overnight. Hiro didn't want to hurry. He was in no rush. But for now, we should head out. We've stayed in the restroom for way too long. And also, you didn't forget about Naoto and Tatsuki, right? They're still waiting for us. Saying such, Imai began to walk out of the restroom. But before Imai could leave the restroom, Hiro stopped him. I'll wait. Hearing him, Imai slightly nodded his head. Please don't tell about this to Naoto and Tatsuki. Hiro requested. With a smile on his face, Imai nodded his head and waved his hand, gesturing Hiro to follow him. But just as they exited the restroom, they witnessed Tatsuki's angry face. His mask tucked inside his pocket, his bare face was looking somewhat red. His brows were scrunched, and there was visible anger in his face. Flaring his nostrils, Tatsuki spoke while staring at them with his cold eyes. What took you two so long? Were you guys perhaps sleeping inside the restroom? Quickly thinking of an excuse, Hiro mumbled. While coming out of the restroom, I saw a few girls from my class. So we were hiding inside the restroom. With an awkward smile on his face, Imai nodded his head. Yeah. Huh. They were really crazy. Squinting his eyes, Tatsuki was somewhat skeptical about Hiro's reasons for being late. If so, were they right now? Sounding somewhat skeptical, Tatsuki questioned. Well, they just went downstairs. So maybe they're in one of the women's fashion store. Replied Hiro without any delay. While making their way towards a coffee shop, Hiro had memorized the location of different stores present inside the mall. Having memorized the location of several stores, that information came really handy at that moment. Since Tatsuki couldn't deny the fact that there were quite a lot of women's clothing store in the floor below, he had no other choice but to believe Hiro's words. Although he was a bit hesitant, he still accepted Hiro's words nonetheless. Fina, I'll trust your words. Tatsuki mumbled while pouting his face. Hearing Tatsuki's response, Hiro and Imai, both of them released a short sigh of relief and impetuously smiled at each other, while exchanging glances with each other. So now if you've cleared your doubts, then shall we shop something? After all, if we go empty-handed, then the coach is obviously going to get suspicious of us. And if he somehow finds out about our lies, he'll never permit us to leave the hostel again. Naoto implied. Then let's head to the sports store first. Imai suggested. I too have few things which I need to buy. After that, the four of them did a bit of shopping. Hiro bought some shorts, short shocks, and 2 comfortable tracksuits. He still hadn't used his money, which his parents had provided him before leaving home. Naoto and Tatsuki, the two of them bought 2 pair of shocks each and some undergarments. Imai bought himself some sportswear and some tapes for taping his knuckles. And by the time they finished their shopping, it was already 2:05 p.m. Now I think we should head back to the hostel. After all, the coach has strictly warned us to be back by 3. Naoto spoke while looking at his phone. Tatsuki and Hiro, both of them, nodded their head. Before we head out, can you give me your phone for a while, Hiro? Imai asked for Hiro's phone before heading out. Hiro then took his phone out from his pocket and handed it to Imai. Hiro was using a decent Android phone at that moment. Since he wasn't a big fan of expensive mobile phones, he hadn't bought anything expensive for him despite earning quite a hefty sum of money from YouTube. Although he wasn't in charge of his money, or that's what he still believed since his parents hadn't disclosed the secret that they were saving the money under his name. Do you have a Facebook or Instagram account? Questioned Imai while typing something on Hiro's phone. Edo, but I don't use it, replied Hiro. However, I'll be opening a new account today. Well, that works as well. Saying such, Imai handed him his phone back. I'll put my number, so call me once you make your account. After all, I still need to know the identity of the bullies which you mentioned about earlier. Although Hiro had disclosed everything to Imai, he still hadn't provided Imai with the pictures of the bullies. And without knowing how they look, Imai couldn't do anything. Thank you, Senior Imai. I'll call you later after making an account. Tokushima, Japan. Inside a traditional Japanese-style two-story wooden house, at the second floor, Akashi, the spiky-haired guy, was lying on his bed, fiddling with his phone. That idiot hasn't contacted me even once after moving to Kawasaki. Has he already forgotten about me? Mumbled Akashi while putting down his phone. Though he already told me that he couldn't use mobile phone in the hostel except during weekends. However, it has already been about a month since he left for Kawasaki, and he still hasn't contacted me. While frowning his brows, Akashi mumbled to himself. He kept on thinking about Hiro, and the more he thought about him, the more he got agitated. Arg, let's not think anything negative. He's not the type of guy who'd abandon his friends. Speaking such, he rose from his bed. He then walked towards the window to get some cold air to cheer him up. Taking a deep breath, he then started to stare blankly at the night sky. The night sky was just like a painting, beautiful and full of colors against the inky, black abyss. The canopy of stars were flickering like the flames of spectral candles, and luminous glow of the moon was cutting through the darkness. And looking at the serene glow of the crescent moon, he felt at ease. Lost in the beautiful scenery in front of him, he completely forgot about his worries. Ding! Just then a sound of notification came from his phone. Despite hearing the notification, he didn't react and instead ignored the sound of the notification. Finally, after about 5 minutes, he lifted his gaze away from the night sky. He then walked toward his bed. Throwing himself in his bed, Akashi then picked up his phone. And just as he turned on his phone, he saw a notification from the Instagram. It was a follow request from an account named Wizard, and the account didn't have a profile picture yet. Who's this wizard guy? Mumbled Akashi. Well, the only wizard I know is Hiro. It's from Hiro. Excitedly mumbling such, Akashi abruptly rose from his bed. Instead of using his real name, Hiro had opted for using an alias. And since he went with the name of Soccer Wizard back then, he used Wizard as his alias for his Instagram account. In order to prevent people from searching his name online, he had intentionally used an alias. After all, his real purpose of making that account was to communicate with his close friends. Quickly accepting the follow request, he then immediately sent a follow request to Hiro, since Hiro had also kept his account private. Hiro, however, didn't accept his request right away. And as impatient as Akashi was, he began to message Hiro. It's you, right? Man, you took so long. Yoman, why aren't you replying? After about a minute, Hiro finally accepted his follow request and messaged him back. Yup, it's me, your friend Hiro. How have you been, Akashi? Sorry, I was occupied with something. Akashi, who was glued to his phone, didn't take long to respond. Just as he received Hiro's messages, instead of messaging him, he video called him. Ring, ring, ring. Hiro picked up the call. He was inside his room, seated at his bed. Yuya, Shunta, and Shun. The three of them were also in Hiro's room at that moment. What took you so long to answer? Complained Akashi as soon as Hiro picked the call. Well, we were discussing something. Hiro replied. We? Sounding somewhat confused, Akashi questioned. Since he couldn't see the rest of his three friends in the screen, he was confused by Hiro's use of pronouns. Wait a while, mumbled Hiro. Noticing Akashi's dumbfounded look, Hiro then turned his camera towards his friends present in his room. Pointing his camera towards Yuya, Shunta, and Shun, Hiro introduced them to each other. These guys here are my teammates. Yuya, Shunta, and Shun. Hiro introduced his friends. Former teammates. Coughing a little, Yuya spoke sarcastically. Hearing the sarcasm, Shunta and Shun burst out into laughter. And as he introduced the three of them to Akashi, all of them waved their hands towards the camera, greeting Akashi with cheerful smile on their faces. Akashi, too, quickly changed his tone and introduced himself politely to Hiro's friends. Noticing the sudden change in Akashi's tone, Hiro couldn't help himself from staring at Akashi with his eyes wide open. As if he had seen something mind-blowing, he just couldn't handle the sudden change in Akashi's tone. When did this idiot learn to speak so politely? Man, he's even more unpredictable than my system. Hiro thought to himself, and as the four of them started to chat with each other, Yuya snatched the phone away from his hands. Since both the sides were close to Hiro, instantly the four of them clicked with each other. As if the four of them were already friends with each other, they completely forgot about Hiro at that moment. Alright, what kind of girls do you guys like? Asked Akashi while making a serious face. What are they talking about? Suddenly, they're talking about girls. With a dumbfounded look on his face, Hiro thought after hearing the progress of their conversation. Wasn't he pissed at me for not calling him a moment ago? A girl with cute face and curvaceous body. Shun replied with his tanned cheeks turning kinda red. Hiro could tell who he was talking about just by hearing those simple words. Minami Miura, thought Hiro after hearing Shun's reply. Just why don't you reveal her name too? Giggled Yuya. Yeah, he has a crush on this girl, named Minami Miura from our school. While smiling, Shunta revealed the name of Shun's crush. Although I've been hearing some rumors that she's interested in Hiro instead. You? Shun gritted his teeth as he jumped atop Shunta, playfully. It happened to you too? Akashi intoned, sounding somewhat surprised. Hearing Akashi's reply, Shun paused and replied, What do you mean by you two? There was this girl named Nanami whom I had a crush on, and I only found it recently that she had a crush on Hiro instead. Akashi revealed. And as Akashi revealed that information, all four of them switched their attention toward Hiro, staring at him coldly. They looked like they were about to commit murder. Noticing their gaze, Hiro knew they were up to something. I'm not a fault, guys. I don't even know them much, spoke Hiro while trying to defend himself. After all, he hadn't done such things intentionally. As expected, the three of them then launched towards Hiro while yelling, "It's all because of your good looks." "Damn, I'm so jealous of your looks," cried out Shun. The four of them continued to wrestle playfully for a while. Akashi, who could hear them loud and clear, was laughing till his stomach started to ache. Finally, as they calmed down, Akashi spoke again. "By the way, what do you think of Hiro's footballing talent?" Hearing Akashi's question, the smile on their face faded away. All of a sudden, the ambience around them got ghastly silent. While making a serious expression, Yuya blurted out, "An unsurpassable talent. I do enjoy playing with him, but sometimes his talent intimidates me." Shunta added with his voice slightly shaking, "I feel the same as well. He's already a nightmare for goalkeepers and defenders. I wonder how lethal he'll be once he makes it to the professional stage." Shun mumbled while looking at Hiro with eyes full of admiration. Akashi, who was listening to their answers from the other side of the phone, nodded seriously. "I can relate to that. But as his friend and as his teammate who played with him since he was a kid, I can tell you all that if you learn from him, you all will definitely improve. With his guidance, I made it to the Nationals, and for that I'll always be grateful to him." Akashi spoke with great admiration. Although Akashi never once revealed about it to Hiro, but he was always really grateful to Hiro for helping him improve. Hearing such words of admiration, Hiro felt his body tingling. With the sides of his lips twitching, he tried to control himself from smiling. With his heart filled with a sensation of warmth, he was extremely happy to hear such warm words from his friends. However, as happy as he was, he maintained a poker face and acted as if their warm words didn't affect him in any way. "I wonder if he'll become the first Asian player to win a Ballon d'Or in the near future." Shunna added, "Well, I'm not sure about it, but it's likely possible since by that time Messi and Ronald would have already hanged their boots." Yuya joked, "But don't forget about Mbappe and Haaland. They both have already won Golden Boy Award for the year 2017 and 2020 respectively. By the time Hiro moves to Europe, they'll already be in their prime," replied Shun. "You guys are forgetting about Pedri, Saka, Bellingham, Foden, and many more. The world is still filled with vast number of talented players. And who knows what kind of monsters are hiding." Hiro too joined in on the conversation. Although he knew about the name of the future winners of the Ballon d'Or, he decided to keep it a secret. Also, there was also the possibility of the future changing, since his regression could trigger a butterfly effect. As small as it is, any changes in the past would directly affect the future after all. Suddenly, their casual conversation steered into football talks. Talking about the possible future winner of Ballon d'Or, all five of them expressed their own opinions. And as such, the five of them kept on conversing about football for nearly 2 hours. Monday, November 12th, 2021. In an alleyway, a bunch of guys dressed in black hotties who looked like gangsters were gathered together. With the lower part of their faces covered by a black handkerchief with a design of skull, only their eyes were visible. The black hottie that those guys were wearing were perfectly identical with each other because of the design of human skull, wearing a crown printed at the back of their hotties. "I really don't get it. Has our Undead Crown gang fallen to this degree that we're stationed here in an alleyway to scare some bunch of kids?" A scrawny-looking guy complained. "Indeed, and why does he want us to hit those kids with football instead of our hands? I'm not even good at playing football." A somewhat fat-looking guy with slick-back black hair nodded his head while pointing at the football, which he was carrying in his left hand. Hearing their complaints, suddenly a guy of average height who was sitting in a goblet squat position stood up and walked towards the fat guy who was holding the ball in his hands. With a rubber band, he had tied his medium-long black hair into a man bun. Some low-sin strands of his hair, which broke free from the rubber band, were dangling freely in front of his fierce-looking black eyes as he made his way towards the fat guy. And just as the guy with the man bun reached the fat guy, he abruptly took the ball from his hands and spoke in a somewhat irritated tone. "Then why don't you go and fight with him?" Upon hearing the words of the guy with the man bun, the fat guy lowered his gaze. His movement froze, and as if he was afraid of something, he couldn't reply anything. "How can we face that demon Amai, Hanagaki? He could literally take on an entire gang by himself," replied the scrawny-looking guy from before. "Yeah, last time when we messed with him, we ended up in hospital bed. And not to mention those MMA freaks who were supporting him. They have clearly warned us that if we even touch a strand of his hair or piss him off, they'll use us as a punching bag." Another guy with somewhat brown hair and tawny-colored pupils joined in. "Then just do as he says if you don't want to get beaten instead." Hanagaki intoned, sounding somewhat pissed. Just then another guy with straight black hair came running towards them. Panting heavily, he looked out of breath. Even so, despite heaving so heavily, he spoke, "They're coming." Hearing his words, all of the guys present there at that moment rushed towards the end of the alleyway to hide themselves. Coming from the other side of the alleyway was Masato and his underlings dressed in school uniform, probably heading to school. Joking and laughing, they were making their way towards the place where those guys dressed in black hotties from before were hiding. Completely unaware of the danger which was about to befall on them, Masato and his underlings were goofily walking without any care. "It must be so nice to have permission to skip the school," spoke Hitsu, the fox-faced guy. "Man, I wish I could skip classes." Another guy sighed. They were obviously talking about Masao, since he had been absent from the school for more than 2 weeks already. Talking such, they kept on walking. And as they approached the intersection at the end of the alleyway, they got ambushed by those black-hooded guys. Seeing those guys, a few of the underlings of Masato tried to scream, hell dash. But before they could scream, those black-hooded guys covered their mouth and prevented them from screaming. Quickly encircling them, those black-hooded guys completely blocked their escape route. Intimidating and tall, each and every single one of those guys looked very terrifying. Who? Shuddered Masato, with a terrified look on his face. Who are you all? I think you got the wrong person. As talkative as Kitsu was, he kept on rambling, out of fear. Just follow us silently. We got something to talk to you guys. Spoke Hanagaki in an intimidating way. Hearing Hanagaki's response, Masato stealthily looked to his left and right, searching for an escape route. He was prepared to abandon his friends and flee away all by himself. But Hanagaki and his friends simply left no route open for him to make his run. Unable to find any route open for him to make his escape, Masato yielded to the power of Undead Crown Gang. Okay, meekly replied Masato while slightly nodding his head. Good choice. Hanagaki mumbled, praising Masato's choice. All right, if any of you tries to escape or scream, I'll promise you that I'll find your house and torture you for the rest of your life. As if he was simply suggesting them, Hanagaki spoke such threatening without raising his voice, calmly. So be a good kid and follow this brothers silently. The fat guy from before added. Hearing such threatening words, Kitsu and the other guys started to tremble. Chattering their teeth, the complexion of their skin turned pale. Their hearts started to beat faster and faster, as if it was going to pop out of their mouth. Their eyes wandered around them erratically. Some of them were gulping their saliva nonstop that their mouths soon turned dry. Even so, out of fear, nobody among them dared to make a single noise. Shrinking their body, they continued to follow Hanagaki and the other fellows without questioning anything. The more they walked, the more silent their surrounding got. The houses in the surrounding got less and less as well. And finally, after walking for about 5 minutes, they arrived in an abandoned apartment under construction. The incomplete 4-story apartment building's concrete pillars were covered with green mosses. Few of its walls were built, while almost more than 60% of its walls were wide open. Looking at the gloomy, incomplete apartment building in front, Masato thought to himself, isn't this that building which was abandoned after a guy killed himself? This is that haunted apartment building, cried out Kitsu with his eyes wide open. With tears forming in his eyes, Kitsu began to cry and beg, no, please don't take us there. The morning sun was shining brilliantly and spreading its warm rays across the surface of the vast land. The blue sky was as clear as still water, and few lumps of white clouds of different shapes and sizes were floating freely in the far-off horizon. However, with the winter making its appearance, the atmosphere was still kind of chilly, despite the sunny day. And the abandoned apartment building in front of Masato still looked spooky even during the daytime. Did you already forgot about what I said earlier? Hanagaki, the guy with man bun, questioned politely after hearing the cries of Kitsu and few other guys. But this place is haunted. With tears rolling down his eyes, Kitsu cried. Then I'll let you meet the ghost of this place today. Hanagaki mumbled casually while looking Kitsu in the eyes. And if you keep talking, then maybe I'll send you to his world as well. And as Hanagaki was speaking, suddenly he scrunched his brows and grabbed Kitsu's chin with his right hand. He then threatened Kitsu, so if you don't want to turn into a ghost yourself, then keep your mouth shut. Hearing Hanagaki's statement, a shiver ran down the spines of other kids present there at that moment. Even Masato looked extremely terrified. Some of them were even on the verge of wetting their pants. Please let me go, cried out Kitsu in muffled voice. Without making any sound, the rest of the kids were also sobbing and begging in muffled voices. Masato and his underlings, all of them were almost in the same condition. Hearing their cries, Hanagaki increased his grip and squeezed Kitsu's cheeks even more tighter than before. Squeezing his cheeks, Hanagaki then yelled furiously, just shut the F***K up and follow me. Hanagaki's roar scared the shit out of them. Feeling totally breathless, Masato's heart stopped for about 3 seconds. As strong as he made himself appear in front of other kids, Masato was actually very weak. He was that guy who was strong to weak and weak to strong. He was the type of guy who liked to prey on weak guys to satisfy his ego. After that, Hanagaki and the rest of the guys from Undead Crown Gang led them inside the abandoned building. Wandering their eyes here and there, Masato and his underlings fearfully followed Hanagaki and others. The inside of the building was even more creepier than its outer appearance. Cobwebs of spiders were present in almost every pillar and corners. Dark and gloomy, some of the walls contained red stains on it which looked like blood. And as they moved further deep inside the building, a musky smell of soil and rotten smell of dead mouse made them cover their nose. What's this smell? While contorting his face and grabbing his nose, Masato questioned. However, nobody from the Undead Crown Gang replied to his questions. And the fatty behind his back simply gave him a push and spoke, keep on moving. Finally, after walking for a while, Hanagaki suddenly stopped. They arrived in a spacious room with a huge wall. Now, then all of you will answer my few questions. And if I'm satisfied, I might let you go, and if I'm not, then who knows what I'll do. Hanagaki mumbled while staring at them. I heard that you guys are bullies. Is it right? Hanagaki questioned. No, sir. No, sir. Almost all of them denied the accusations and shook their heads, Immediately. Oh, okay, Hanagaki murmured. Then, for the second question, Hanagaki continued his questioning. Then it wasn't you guys who bullied our boss's cousin, right? No, sir. We haven't troubled anyone. Never in my life have I ever bullied anyone. Masato replied. The rest of his underlings, too, shook their head and denied Hanagaki's claims. Oh, that might be wrong. But if you're telling lies, then the consequences will be really bad. Hanagaki mumbled while walking back and forth. Suddenly, one of the underling of Masato asked curiously, Sir, what's the name of your boss's cousin? Masao Kuramoto. Hanagaki replied, while turning his gaze towards the guy who questioned him. Hearing Masao's names, they began to panic. Their body temperature suddenly started to rise, and they started to sweat profusely all of a sudden. They never imagined that Masao had a cousin who was a gangster. After hearing Masao's names, they knew that they could no longer lie to Hanagaki. But since the main culprit was Masato, and most of them were only following Masato, they could get away unscratched if they just told Hanagaki the truth. And if they could simply put the blame on Masato and hang him on the guillotine, then they could save themselves from being hung on the guillotine. That's what Masato's underlings started to think. Masato, on the other hand, started to panic even more than other. Hearing Masao's name, his heart skipped a beat, and suddenly it started to beat erratically. Slowly turning his gaze towards his friends, or that's what he thought until he was caught by a gangster, he found them all sweating profusely. At that moment, Kitsu, the fox face guy, suddenly opened his mouth. It's all Masato's fault. I tried to stop him several times, but he never listened to me. Sir, he was the one who bullied him. Hearing Kitsu's words, Masato frantically yelled, What are you speaking, Kitsu? To save themselves, Kitsu and other guys had decided to put the blame on Masato. I'm speaking the truth. Kitsu replied. He was the one who made Masao his bread shuttle. Showing off his strength, he often hit Masao, and we only followed him because we feared his strength. Oh, is that so? Hanagaki questioned after hearing Kitsu's claims. That's right, sir. We're innocent, sir. We only followed his will. The rest of the guys nodded their head and pleaded not guilty. How could you all put all the blame on me? Wasn't it your idea to traumatize Masao by mentioning the name of his dead best friend, Kitsu? And it wasn't only me who used him as bread shuttle. You all guys were involved as well. And it wasn't only me who beat him and oppressed him. You all did the same as well. Masato, after hearing the accusations of his underlings, started to have a meltdown. Exactly as predicted by Mai. They're all putting the blame on that Masato guy. Thought Hanagaki after hearing their words. And as time progressed, they kept blaming each other. The blaming game progressed. Hanagaki was still thinking that everything was planned and predicted by Mai. However, the real mastermind behind the scene was Hiro. He was the one who had meticulously planned everything. Faced with a greater threat, Masato and his underlings did exactly what most of the people would do in that kind of situation. Put the blame on someone else to save their own neck. Don't act like you all are innocent now. 3 weeks ago, I saw you guys venting your anger on Masao in the school toilet because you were scolded by teacher in class. Masato revealed. Oh, you want to talk about such stuffs? Then I'll tell you, sir, once he hit Masao so hard on his solar plexus that he was literally coughing blood. And do you know why he did that? He did it to test his fighting skills. Whenever he learns a new fighting move, he tests his skills on Masao. Kitsu started to dig even deeper on Masato's wrongdoings. And since his parents were one of the major shareholders of the school somehow covered up that whole incident and let him off the hook with only a single warning. These kids are even vicious than us, thought Hanagaki while hearing their wrongdoings. Are they even kids? They're like devil with the appearance of kids. Enough, shouted the fat guy with slicked-back black hair. Hearing his furious roar, Masato, Kitsu, and the rest, all of them shut their mouth. All the people present, they were startled by his sudden roar. Hanagaki, we don't have all day to listen to their yapping. So, let's just finish our task and quickly head back. Sounding very irritated, the fat guy mumbled. Hanagaki nodded his head and replied, Yeah, you're right. Let's just do what we were told. Hanagaki then turned his attention toward Masato and his underlings and spoke while pointing at the huge wall in front. All of you go stand in front of that wall. But we're not at fault, sir. We're innocent, sir, cried Kitsu. The rest of the guys also started to plead for their innocence. Masato, on the other hand, remained completely silent. He knew that he wouldn't escape unscratched no matter what he did. He had already yielded to his fate. Perhaps you didn't hear what I said. Speaking such, Hanagaki walked towards the side of Kitsu. Bang! Hanagaki then, all of a sudden, punched Kitsu hard on his stomach. Getting hit on his stomach, Kitsu let out a painful scream, arg. Followed by his scream, he immediately threw up. Drool coming out of his mouth, he fell down on the ground while grabbing his stomach. Writhing in pain, he looked very miserable at that moment. Witnessing the pathetic sight of Kitsu crying and moaning in pain, the rest of the guys present there started to panic even more. Trembling with fear, they were having trouble moving their body. Their faces completely pale, there was a fear in their eyes. Did you guys not hear me? Hanagaki yelled furiously. I said move. The hot guys who were standing behind them gave them a rough push on their back. Getting pushed from behind, some of them stumbled and fell on the ground, roughly. And you two get up and stand over there. Kicking Kitsu lightly, Hanagaki commanded Kitsu to stand in front of the wall. However, Kitsu couldn't bring himself to move his body, and he kept on moaning in pain while grabbing his stomach. Seeing his unwillingness to move, Hanagaki then commanded other gang members to carry him towards the wall. Carry him to the wall. We can't leave anyone out. Hearing such, two scrawny guys grabbed each of Kitsu's arms and carried him towards the wall. The rest of the kids walked on their own. What are they going to do? Are they going to pound us with rocks? Shuddered one guy while walking towards the wall. And as all of them nervously lined up in front of the wall, Hanagaki spoke. You might want to cover your face and private parts. And if anybody dares to run away, mark my words, I'll throw a stone at you and open your skull. Hearing such threatening words, Masato and his underlings immediately covered their face and temples with their hands. Except Kitsu, who was still grabbing his stomach. All of the other guys nervously covered their faces. Bring the balls. Hanagaki commanded. Upon hearing his command, one of the guys dressed in black hotties left the place. Reflect on what you've done wrong. And if you want to take revenge on us, feel free to come and look for us. However, I'll warn you before you decide to take revenge. If any of you gets caught at that time, just know that it's the end for you. Oh, and before we start your punishment, I'd like to add another thing. If we find any of you guys reporting this incident to anyone else, let's say your friends, parents, or police, then be prepared to face the consequences. Sounding all serious, Hanagaki threatened the kids in front. Just then the guy who left earlier came back with a sack of football. Make sure to remember this pain and repent on your actions. Speaking such, Hanagaki and the rest of members of Undead Crown Gang started to pound Masato and his underlings with football. And since the ball kept on rebounding back to them because of the wall in front of them, Hanagaki and the others kept on hitting Masato and his underlings with the ball non-stop without any break for about 10 minutes. Getting hit by the ball over and over again from such a close distance, all of them shrunk their body into a shape of ball to prevent themselves from getting hit. For that entire 10 minutes, they all kept on screaming in pain, and the pain kept on intensifying with each hit. Despite the gradual decrease in the power of impact, it felt like getting hit by a rock instead of a ball after some moment. The part of their body where they were hit the most had completely turned blue and was starting to swell. However, luckily, not a single one among them lost their consciousness. But still, those 10 minutes of pounding felt like an hour-long torture to them. Patches of blue marks from the collision with the ball appeared all over their body.